Subscribe to Infidelity Tales Lab for more stories. Now, let's begin this one. Chapter 1. The Extraction. Warren McKay had never been the charitable type, but when a mobile blood drive rolled into Apex Therapeutics parking lot on a gray Tuesday morning, his boss Vernon McKenzie made it clear that participation wasn't optional. Vernon stood at the entrance to the medical trailer, clipboard in hand, checking off names like a prison warden conducting roll call. "McKay, you're up at 11:30, Vernon announced, not looking up from his list. "Try not to pass out. We need you functional for the Grayson presentation." Warren nodded, suppressing the urge to remind Vernon that he'd carried the last 3 presentations while Vernon took credit during board meetings. At 34, Warren had learned to pick his battles. He was a senior research analyst at Apex, a pharmaceutical consulting firm that advised biotech companies on drug development strategies. The work was intellectually demanding but politically exhausting, especially under Vernon's management. The morning crawled by. Warren reviewed data sets for a gene therapy client, his mind wandering to his weekend plans with his girlfriend Andrea Atwood. They'd been dating for 8 months, long enough that her parents had started asking pointed questions about his intentions. Andrea was a pediatric nurse at Children's Memorial, compassionate and grounded in ways that balanced Warren's analytical nature. She'd encouraged him to donate blood. "It takes 30 minutes and saves lives," she'd said over breakfast that morning, her dark eyes earnest. "Plus, they screen for everything. You'll get a free mini physical." At 11:25, Warren locked his computer and headed to the trailer. Inside, the smell of antiseptic mixed with the metallic tang of blood. 3 donation stations lined the narrow space, separated by thin curtains. A young technician with a blonde ponytail and a name tag reading Shelby Le gestured him to the middle station. "First time donating?" Shelby asked, prepping her equipment with practiced efficiency. "Yeah, how can you tell? You're gripping the armrest like it's a ledge." She smiled. "Relax. This is the easy part." Shelby ran through the standard questions: recent travel, medications, sexual history. Warren answered honestly, watching as she tied the tourniquet around his bicep and swabbed the crook of his elbow with iodine. The needle pinch was sharp but brief. "You're doing great," Shelby said. "Now just squeeze that ball every few seconds and we'll be done in no time." Warren watched his blood flow through the tube into the collection bag, dark and viscous. Shelby busied herself with labels and paperwork. 3 minutes passed, then 4. Shelby glanced at the collection bag, then at the tube. Her brow furrowed. "Something wrong?" Warren asked. "No, just hold on." She adjusted the tube, checked the needle placement. Her expression shifted from puzzlement to concern. The blood in the tube had started to separate, red cells sinking while the plasma above took on an unusual amber tint with faint iridescent streaks, like oil on water. Shelby's hands moved faster now, pulling out her phone. "Don't move," she said, her voice carefully controlled. "Stay very calm, Mr. McKay. What's happening? Just please don't move." She stepped through the curtain, and Warren heard urgent whispers. His pulse quickened, which only made the blood flow faster. Through the gap in the curtain, he saw Shelby speaking rapidly to an older woman in a white coat, the supervising physician, Dr. Rachel Fry, according to her ID badge. Dr. Fry's eyes widened as Shelby showed her something on her phone. Both women approached Warren's station, Dr. Fry's face professionally neutral, but her movements tense. "Mr. McKay, I'm Dr. Fry. I need you to remain still while we finish the draw." She examined the collection bag, lifting it to the fluorescent light. The iridescence was more pronounced now, swirling patterns that seemed almost luminescent. "Shelby, call Coordinator Barnett. Use my personal line. Tell him we have a Priority Alpha situation." "Priority Alpha?" Warren's throat went dry. "That sounds serious. What's wrong with my blood?" "We're not sure yet," Dr. Fry said, though her expression suggested otherwise. "Have you ever been told you have any blood disorders? Hemophilia, sickle cell, anything unusual?" "No. Clean bill of health my whole life. Rarely even get colds." Dr. Fry exchanged a look with Shelby. "Who were your parents, Mr. McKay? Are they living?" The question struck Warren like a physical blow. "Why does that matter?" Please, just answer. My mother was Diana McKay. She died when I was 3. Car accident. My father, Paul McKay, died 7 years ago. Stroke. Warren's voice hardened. Now tell me what's going on. Before Dr. Fry could respond, the trailer door opened. 2 people entered. A tall black man in an expensive charcoal suit and a striking woman with steel gray hair, also formally dressed. They didn't introduce themselves. The man carried a metal briefcase marked with a biohazard symbol and a logo Warren didn't recognize. A double helix intertwined with what looked like crown. Dr. Fry, the man said, his voice smooth and authoritative. Secure the sample and clear the trailer. Now, Dr. Fry moved quickly, closing off Warren's station with additional curtains. Shelby ushered the other 2 donors out with apologies about equipment malfunction. Within 90 seconds, Warren was alone with the 3 strangers. The man opened his briefcase and removed a handheld scanner, passing it over Warren's blood bag. It emitted a series of rapid beeps, and a small screen displayed data Warren couldn't decipher. The man's composed demeanor cracked. His hand trembled as he lowered the scanner. Jesus Christ, he whispered. He looked at the woman. Lori, it's confirmed. Marker sequence 774 with the crown variant. Purity level off the charts. Lori Stanton. Warren caught her name from the ID badge she now clipped to her jacket, went pale. She pulled out her phone and typed rapidly. Mr. McKay, the man said, turning to face him fully. My name is Sergio Barnett. I'm a special coordinator with the National Institute of Genetic Medicine. This is Lori Stanton, Chief of Biosecurity. What I'm about to tell you is classified information subject to federal law. Classified. Warren's mind raced. I came here to donate blood for car accident victims, not get recruited into some spy thriller. Your blood, Sergio continued, ignoring the sarcasm, contains genetic markers that should not exist in the general population. Markers associated with a research project that was shut down 33 years ago. Warren's birth year. The coincidence wasn't lost on him. What kind of research project? Sergio hesitated, weighing his words. In the 1980s, a private genetics laboratory called Helix Crown conducted experimental gene therapies. Highly classified work, theoretically aimed at treating hereditary diseases. The project was terminated when ethical violations came to light. What kind of violations? Human experimentation without consent, genetic modification of embryonic cells, creation of heritable changes that would pass to subsequent generations. Sergio's jaw tightened. The lab was shut down, its directors prosecuted, all samples supposedly destroyed. But your blood suggests otherwise. The implications crashed over Warren like a wave. You're saying I'm some kind of lab creation? That my parents were likely participants, willing or unwilling, in Helix Crown's program? Lori interjected. Her tone was clinical, detached. The markers in your blood are unique to their methodology, which means at least one of your parents underwent their procedures. Warren yanked his arm away from the needle, ignoring Dr. Fry's protest. Blood trickled from the puncture site as he stood, backing toward the trailer exit. This is insane. My parents were normal people. My dad was an accountant. My mom was a school teacher. Their professions don't matter, Sergio said. What matters is that you exist. And if you exist, others might as well. We need you to come with us, Mr. McKay. For testing. For your own protection. Protection from what? From people who would kill to get their hands on what's in your veins. Warren's phone buzzed. A text from Andrea. Hope the donation went well. Dinner at Luigi's tonight, 7 p.m. Normal life, just beyond the trailer walls. Vernon would be wondering where he was. The Grayson presentation needed final touches. Andrea was waiting. Everything ordinary and comprehensible. I'm not going anywhere, Warren said. Not until you tell me everything. Starting with what these genetic markers actually do. Sergio and Lori exchanged glances. Lori spoke first. Enhanced cellular regeneration. Extreme disease resistance. Potentially extended lifespan. Helix Crown was trying to create what they called optimized humans. The ethical nightmare is obvious, and the results were unstable, Sergio added. Most subjects died. Those who survived experienced complications, psychological breaks, organ failure. The program was a catastrophe. But I'm fine, Warren said. I've been fine my whole life. Which makes you an anomaly, Lori said. A successful result in a sea of failures. Do you understand how valuable that makes you? How many organizations, governments, corporations, black market biolabs would pay fortunes to study your genetic code? Warren's phone buzzed again. Another text from Andrea. You okay? You're usually quick to respond. He looked at the blood bag, at his own modified cells suspended in plasma, carrying secrets his parents had taken to their graves. He thought of his father's stroke, sudden and fatal at 59. His mother's car accident. The details always vague in family stories. Were their deaths really accidents? Warren asked quietly. Sergio's silence was answer enough. We can protect you, Lori said. But you need to cooperate. Come to our facility. Let's run tests. Help us determine if there are others like you. And if I refuse, then you become a target, Sergio said bluntly. Word of this discovery will spread. It's already spreading. Our protocols require reporting. Within hours, interested parties will know. Some will want to study you. Others will want to weaponize what you represent. A few will simply want you eliminated to bury Helix Crown's legacy permanently. Warren's analytical mind kicked into gear, processing probabilities and options. These people could be lying, part of some elaborate scam. But the fear in Dr. Fry's eyes was real. The shock in Sergio's reaction was genuine, and the iridescent shimmer in his blood bag was undeniable. I need 24 hours, Warren said, to put my affairs in order. Tell people I'm taking a business trip. Impossible, Lori said. Every hour increases the risk. Then make it possible, Warren shot back. Because if you try to force me, I'll make this as difficult as I can. I'll contact lawyers, media. I'll scream about illegal detention until your classified project becomes front-page news. Sergio studied Warren with newfound respect. You're not panicking. I'm terrified, Warren admitted. But I'm also not stupid. You need my cooperation. That gives me leverage. After a tense silence, Sergio nodded. 12 hours. We'll place you in protective surveillance. Pack essentials only. Tell your girlfriend you're going on a work trip. Something urgent but routine. Tell your boss the same. No details. No hints. Protective surveillance means people following me. Watching over you, Lori corrected. You won't see them, but they'll be there. Warren held out his hand. My blood sample. I want a portion of it. Something I can have independently tested. That's not protocol, Lori said. It's my blood, my genetic code, my leverage. Warren kept his hand extended. Give me one vial. Sealed. Or I walk out right now and take my chances. Sergio's lips twitched in something almost like a smile. He filled a small vial from the collection bag and sealed it with official tape. You're smarter than most, Mr. McKay. Let's hope that helps you survive what's coming. Warren pocketed the vial and walked out of the trailer into the parking lot. Autumn sunlight felt surreal after the fluorescent gloom. He texted Andrea back. All good. Luigi's at 7 sounds perfect. His hands were steady. His breathing was controlled. But inside, Warren McKay felt the foundations of his reality crumbling. He had 12 hours to prepare for a life he didn't ask for and didn't understand. And somewhere in the shadows, people were already moving toward him. Chapter 2, The Inheritance. Warren drove home on autopilot, his mind dissecting the trailer encounter with surgical precision. 12 hours. He needed to think several moves ahead, anticipate threats he couldn't yet name. His apartment building loomed ahead, a modest complex in a quiet neighborhood where nothing interesting ever happened. Until today, he parked in his assigned spot and sat for a moment, scanning the area. A gray sedan 3 rows over, engine running, 2 occupants barely visible through tinted windows. Protective surveillance. He considered waving, but decided against antagonizing his watchers. Inside his apartment, Warren locked the door and drew the blinds. He retrieved the blood vial from his pocket, holding it to the light. The iridescent shimmer was fainter now, but still visible, like captured aurora borealis. He photographed it from multiple angles, then secured it in a fireproof safe he kept for important documents. Next, He opened his laptop and began researching Helix Crown. The results were disappointingly sparse. A few academic papers from the mid-1980s about experimental gene therapy. Then nothing. Dead links. Scrubbed databases. The kind of thorough erasure that required serious resources. But Warren was good at finding patterns in missing data. He searched for the researchers mentioned in those old papers. Most led nowhere. But one name, Dr. Benjamin Sweeney, connected to an obituary from 1992. Died unexpectedly at age 47. No cause given. Survived by his wife, Catherine, and daughter. Catherine Sellers, according to marriage records. Still alive, living in Portland. Warren copied her address. If Sergio and Lori wanted to bury the past, Warren needed to understand it first. Knowledge was leverage, and he was operating at a severe information disadvantage. His phone rang. Andrea. Hey, he answered, forcing casualness into his voice. You sound weird. What happened at the blood drive? Warren closed his eyes. Andrea's intuition was uncomfortably sharp. Weird day at work. Vernon's being Vernon. Want to cancel tonight? We could just order in, watch something mindless. The offer was tempting, but sitting in his apartment, counting down the hours felt unbearable. No, Luigi's is perfect. I need the distraction. 7 o'clock. I'll be there. Warren, you're sure you're okay? Just tired. See you soon. After hanging up, Warren packed a duffel bag, clothes for a week, toiletries, laptop, chargers, the vial from his safe. He added his father's watch, a leather-banded heirloom that was one of his few tangible connections to Paul McKay. He strapped it on his wrist, feeling the familiar weight. 5:47 p.m. Time to face Vernon. Warren called his boss, who answered on the fourth ring with his characteristic impatience. McKay, where the hell have you been? The Grayson people are waiting for those revisions. I sent them 2 hours ago. Warren lied smoothly. Check your spam folder. Vernon, I need to take emergency leave. Family situation. I'll be out for at least a week. A week? We have a Mercer pitch on Friday. Jorge can handle it. He knows the material. Jorge Hooper was the other senior analyst, competent if uninspired. Vernon's silence was calculating. This better not be about job hunting. If you're interviewing elsewhere, it's family, Warren repeated. I'll have limited availability, but can consult remotely if absolutely critical. Fine, but this conversation isn't over. Warren ended the call, feeling a grim satisfaction. Vernon's suspicions would work in his favor. A plausible explanation for sudden absence that had nothing to do with classified genetics programs. 6:15 p.m. He had time before meeting Andrea. Warren opened a secure email account he'd set up years ago for sensitive work communications and composed a message to himself. If you're reading this, something has happened to me. In my apartment safe, code 041787, you'll find evidence related to Helix Crown genetics program. Blood sample with unique markers. Research Sergio Barnett and Lori Stanton, National Institute of Genetic Medicine. My parents may have been experimental subjects. Trust no one in authority. Warren, he scheduled the email to send in 48 hours unless he logged in to cancel it. A dead man's switch, crude but effective. 6:45 p.m. Warren locked his apartment and drove to Luigi's, checking his mirrors compulsively. The gray sedan followed at a discreet distance. At least his protection detail was competent. Luigi's was a small Italian place with checkered tablecloths and candles and wine bottles. Aggressively romantic in a way that usually made Warren uncomfortable. But Andrea loved it, and tonight its normalcy felt like medicine. She was already seated, wearing a blue dress that brought out her eyes. She smiled as Warren approached, but the smile flickered when she saw his expression. Okay, spill, she said as he sat. And don't tell me it's just work. Warren had prepared lies, excuses, misdirections. But looking at Andrea across the table, he found himself telling a version of the truth. The blood donation flagged something unusual. Medical anomaly. They want me to go to a specialist facility for testing. Andrea's nursing instincts activated immediately. What kind of anomaly? Blood disorder? Are you sick? They don't think so. Something genetic. Probably nothing, but they want to be thorough. When? Tomorrow morning. Could be a week of tests. Andrea reached across the table, taking his hand. Warren, this is serious. Do you want me to come with you? I can take personal days. The offer touched him more than he expected. No, it's just observation and lab work. Boring medical stuff. But I wanted you to know, in case I'm hard to reach. You're scared, she said quietly. Wouldn't you be? Terrified. But you're one of the toughest people I know. If something's wrong, you'll handle it. Warren wished he shared her confidence. They ordered food neither of them tasted, making forced conversation about Andrea's shift at the hospital, about plans for when he returned. Normal couple talk that felt increasingly surreal. As they finished dessert, Andrea's expression turned serious. There's something I need to tell you. I was going to wait, but with everything happening, Warren's stomach tightened. What? My dad wants to meet you. Officially. Sunday dinner at their place. She smiled nervously. He's very old-fashioned about these things. Meeting the boyfriend, grilling him about intentions. Any other week, Warren would have panicked. Tonight, the mundane anxiety was almost comforting. Sunday might not work with the medical stuff. Rain check. Of course. Just. Warren, this is going somewhere, right? Us. He looked at her, this good, decent woman who'd somehow decided he was worth her time. Yeah, he said. Definitely somewhere. They left Luigi's at 9:30. Warren walked Andrea to her car, hyper-aware of the watchers in the shadows. He kissed her goodbye, trying to memorize the moment. Call me when you can, Andrea said. Even just to say you're okay. I will. He watched her drive away, then returned to his car. The gray sedan was gone, replaced by a dark SUV with government plates. The surveillance team was getting less subtle. Warren considered confronting them, but decided against it. Instead, he drove to the 24-hour copy shop on Marshall Street. Using cash and a fake name, he made copies of everything in his research file. The photos of his blood, the Helix Crown information, the Sergio Barnett contact details. He mailed one set to a P.O. box he kept for spam subscriptions and another to Catherine Sellers in Portland with a note. Your husband worked for Helix Crown. So did my parents. We need to talk. Warren McKay. By the time Warren returned home, it was past 11. He sat in his apartment, duffel bag packed, watching the clock wind toward his deadline. At 11:47, his phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. McKay. Sergio Barnett's voice tense. We need to move now. There's been a development. It hasn't been 12 hours. The timeline's changed. Someone leaked your information to unauthorized parties. You're not safe at your location. How do I know you're not the threat? Because if we wanted you dead or disappeared, it would have happened already. Look out your window. Third-floor apartment across the street. Warren moved to the window, peering through a gap in blinds. In the building opposite, a figure stood silhouetted in a window, holding what looked like a rifle with a long-range scope. That's not my team, Sergio said. That's a cleanup crew. If you stay there, you'll be dead in 5 minutes. There's a white van pulling up to your building right now. Get in it. Warren grabbed his duffel bag and ran. Chapter 3. The Descent. The stairwell lights flickered as Warren descended, his footsteps echoing off concrete walls. Behind him, he heard his apartment door splinter. The cleanup crew wasn't bothering with subtlety. He burst through the ground floor exit into the parking lot just as the white van screeched to a halt. The side door flew open. Sergio Barnett reached out. Move! Warren dove in, and the van peeled out before the door fully closed. He rolled onto his back, breathing hard, as Lori Stanton leaned over him with a scanner. Stay still, she ordered, running the device over his chest and limbs. It beeped erratically. No trackers. Good. Who were those people? Warren demanded. Remains to be seen, Sergio said for the passenger seat. The driver, a muscular woman with short-cropped hair, navigated through residential streets with professional precision. But they moved fast. Too fast. Someone with serious reach knew about you within hours. You said your protocols required reporting. Maybe it's your own people. Lori's expression darkened. That's what concerns us. The leak came from inside NIGM. Only 7 people had access to your file. One of them sold you out. The van merged onto the highway, heading east. Warren pulled himself into a seat, his mind racing. Where are we going? Safe house. 30 miles from here. Remote location, off-grid communications, defensible perimeter. Sergio turned to face him. Once we're secure, we'll begin testing. Figure out exactly what makes you different. And find out who wants me dead, Warren added. That too. They drove in tense silence for 20 minutes. Warren watched the city lights fade into rural darkness. The driver, Sergio, introduced her as Constance McDonald, former Special Forces, took an unmarked exit onto a narrow road cutting through dense forest. We have a tail, Constance announced, checking her mirrors. Sergio swore. How close? Half-mile back. Black sedan. They're maintaining distance. Lose them. Constance accelerated, killing the van's headlights and navigating by moonlight and GPS. The road twisted through the trees, barely wide enough for two vehicles. Behind them, the sedan's headlights appeared, then disappeared around curves. They're good, Constance muttered. Professional pursuit driving. Lori was on her phone, speaking rapidly in coded language. Backup is 12 minutes out. We need to reach the safe house. The road forked ahead. Constance took the left branch without slowing, the van's suspension groaning as they hit a pothole. The sedan stayed with them. Then the night exploded with gunfire. Bullets punched through the van's rear panel, sparking off metal. Warren hit the floor as Sergio returned fire through a gun port in the rear door. The sedan swerved, but maintained pursuit. They're trying to disable us, not kill, Sergio shouted. They want McKay alive. That's supposed to be reassuring? Warren shouted back. Constance took another sharp turn, this one onto a barely visible dirt track. The van bounced violently over roots and rocks. The sedan tried to follow, but its lower clearance betrayed it. Warren heard the screech of metal on stone. Then the sedan fell back. Safe house, 2 minutes, Constance reported. They emerged into a clearing. A prefabricated structure sat in the center, floodlights illuminating a perimeter fence topped with razor wire. Constance drove straight through an opening gate, which closed automatically behind them. Armed guards emerged from the building, 4 of them carrying rifles, wearing tactical gear. Sergio jumped out and conferred with their leader, a grizzled man in his 50s. Kirk Blankenship, head of security, Sergio told Warren. He'll keep you alive. Kirk nodded curtly. Inside. Now. The safe house interior was Spartan, concrete floors, reinforced walls, minimal furniture. Kirk directed Warren to a back room equipped with a bed, desk, and bathroom. No windows. A single door with electronic locks. You'll stay here until we clear the threat, Kirk said. Don't try to leave. For your own protection. This looks suspiciously like a prison cell, Warren observed. It's a cage, Kirk agreed, but one designed to keep predators out, not you in. Get some rest. Tomorrow we start tests. After Kirk left, Warren heard the electronic lock engage. He was alone. He unpacked his duffel, finding everything intact, including the blood vial. He set up his laptop, but found no internet connection. Isolated network only. His phone had 1 bar of signal, though he suspected it was monitored. No messages from Andrea. It was past midnight now. She'd be asleep, unaware that Warren's life had turned into a paranoid thriller. Warren lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling. His mind kept circling back to his parents. Paul and Diana McKay. Had they known what Helix Crown did to them? Were they volunteers or victims? Did they realize they were passing modified genes to their son? Paul had been a quiet man, methodical and reserved. He rarely spoke about Diana, whose death when Warren was 3 left a hole Warren barely remembered. Paul raised him alone, never remarrying, pouring his energy into giving Warren a stable, normal life. Had that been guilt? Penance for participating in something monstrous? Warren pulled out his phone and opened the photo album he rarely looked at, images of Paul from happier times. His father at Warren's high school graduation, at Warren's college acceptance celebration. Always proud, always present, but always with a shadow of sadness in his eyes. In one photo, Paul wore a medical bracelet. Warren zoomed in. The engraving was barely visible. Helix participant 774. The marker sequence Sergio had mentioned. Warren's hand shook. His father had known. had lived with that knowledge for decades, and died without ever telling his son the truth. A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. The lock disengaged, and Lori entered carrying a medical kit. "Can't sleep either?" she asked. "Would you?" "Fair point." She sat in the room's single chair. "I need to draw blood. More comprehensive analysis than the quick field test." Warren extended his arm. As Lori worked, he studied her, probably mid-40s, competent and controlled, but with tension around her eyes. "How long have you known about Helix Crown?" Warren asked. 6 years. I was brought onto NIGM's historical genetics project to help track down residual subjects. We found 14 over the years. You're the 15th. What happened to the others? Lori's pause told him everything. 3 are in protective custody. 4 died of complications before we located them. The rest were eliminated by interested parties. Eliminated, Warren repeated flatly. "You mean murdered?" "Yes." "Why keep me alive then? Why not just study my corpse?" "Because living subjects provide ongoing data, and because you're unique, stable expression of the modifications with no apparent side effects. The others all manifested problems. Autoimmune disorders, neurological issues. You're a successful result, which makes you invaluable for understanding why Helix Crown usually failed." She labeled the blood vials with efficient movements. "You asked earlier about your parents' deaths. We've reviewed the records. Your mother's car accident showed signs of tampering, brake line fluid drained. Your father's stroke occurred 2 weeks after he attempted to contact a journalist about Helix Crown. The revelation was a punch to the gut. They were murdered. Most likely, someone didn't want their story told. That same someone probably wants you silenced now. Then why tell me? Why not just keep me in the dark? Use me as a lab rat?" Lori met his eyes. "Because you deserve the truth. And because we need you to cooperate, which requires trust. I'm not going to lie to you, Warren. Your life is in danger. But we're your best chance at survival. What about catching whoever killed my parents? That's complicated. The original Helix Crown directors are mostly dead. The facility was demolished. But the money behind it, the real power, that's still out there. Still interested in the technology. Still willing to kill for it. Names, Warren demanded. "Give me names." "We don't have definitive proof, but our investigation points to a consortium of biotech investors. The primary suspect is Raymond White, billionaire founder of Gene Future Corporation. He was never officially connected to Helix Crown, but financial records show he funneled money through shell companies to the lab." Warren committed the name to memory. Raymond White. Why not arrest him? Insufficient evidence. White's lawyers bury everything. But if we could prove he's still actively hunting Helix subjects, we'd have grounds for prosecution. Lori stood. "That's where you come in. You're bait, Warren. Live bait to draw out the people who murdered your parents. You want me to be a target? You already are. We're just making it strategic." After Lori left, Warren pulled up his laptop and searched for Raymond White. The results were extensive. Forbes profiles, charitable foundation work, interviews about genetic medicine's future. White was 71, silver-haired and distinguished, with a smile that never reached his eyes. In one photo from a medical conference, White stood next to a younger man identified as his head of research, Dr. Sean Goff. Warren clicked through to Goff's profile. PhD in genetic engineering from MIT. Published extensively on gene therapy. No obvious connection to Helix Crown. But when Warren dug deeper into Goff's publication history, he found a gap. 1989 to 1993, nothing published. The Helix Crown operational years. Warren was about to investigate further when his laptop screen went black. Text appeared. "Stop digging. They're watching. Delete your search history now." Warren's heart hammered. He obeyed, clearing his browser cache and history. The text vanished, replaced by his normal desktop. Someone had accessed his isolated network. Someone inside the safe house. Kirk Blankenship's words echoed. "It's a cage designed to keep predators out." But what if the predator was already inside? Warren locked his door from the inside, a flimsy precaution, and wedged the chair into the handle. He positioned himself where he could see both the door and the vent in the ceiling, the blood vial clutched in one hand and his phone in the other. The night stretched ahead, full of invisible threats. At 3:47 a.m., Warren heard footsteps in the corridor. They stopped outside his door. The lock began to disengage. Warren prepared to fight. Chapter 4: The Defector. The door opened to reveal not an assassin, but Dr. Rachel Fry from the blood drive, now wearing jeans and a hoodie instead of her white coat. She pressed a finger to her lips, then pointed to the ceiling corner where a tiny camera lens glinted in the dim light. Warren understood. He stood casually, as if greeting an expected visitor. "Dr. Fry, midnight house call." Something like that. She entered, closing the door softly. Her eyes were red-rimmed from exhaustion or tears. "We need to talk. Somewhere without ears." She pulled out a small device that emitted a soft static hiss, a signal jammer. The camera's red recording light flickered and died. "You have 3 minutes before security notices the camera malfunction," Rachel said urgently. "Listen carefully. Sergio Barnett is not who he claims to be." Warren's muscles tensed. "Explain." "NIGM is real, and there was a Helix Crown investigation. But Sergio isn't leading it, he's sabotaging it. He's been feeding information to Raymond White for at least 2 years. The cleanup crew that attacked your apartment, they weren't trying to kill you. They were supposed to extract you before NIGM's real agents arrived. Why tell me this? Because I made the mistake of trusting Sergio with your blood data. He immediately contacted White. I saw the encrypted message before he could delete it. Once I realized what I'd done." Her voice cracked. "Your parents died because people like me followed orders without asking questions. I won't make that mistake again. If Sergio's compromised, what about Lori? Kirk? Are they all working for White? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not. But you can't trust anyone here." Rachel pulled out a key card. "Service entrance, east side of the building. This will get you through the first 2 security doors. After that, you're on your own. And then what? Run blindly into the woods. I have a car parked a 1/4 mile down the access road. Gray Honda, keys under the driver's mat. GPS programmed to a location in Portland. Catherine Sellers, wife of Dr. Benjamin Sweeney. She'll have answers Sergio doesn't want you to find." The name sent a jolt through Warren. He'd mailed her a letter hours ago. What do you know about Catherine?" "Because I've been doing what you should be doing, investigating Helix Crown independently. Catherine's husband didn't just work for Helix. He tried to expose it, and they killed him for it. She's been in hiding for 30 years, but she'll talk to you. You're living proof her husband died trying to protect." A loud beep interrupted them. Rachel's jammer battery was dying. "Go now," she whispered. "Once that camera resets, they'll know we talked. Come with me." "I can't. My daughter. Sergio knows where she lives. He's already threatened her to keep me compliant. I'm trapped, Warren. But you're not. Use that." She pressed the key card into his hand, reactivated her jammer for a final burst, and slipped out. Warren waited 30 seconds, then grabbed his duffel bag and eased into the corridor. The safe house was laid out like a bunker, long hallways with numbered rooms branching off a central hub. Dim emergency lighting cast everything in sickly green. Warren moved toward where he estimated east would be, guided by a mental map he'd been unconsciously constructing since arrival. Voices ahead. He ducked into an unlocked supply closet as Kirk Blankenship and another guard walked past. "Camera in room 7 is down." Fry was in there. "Want to check on the asset?" "Not yet. Get 5 minutes. If it's just a malfunction, no need to spook McKay." Their footsteps faded. Warren emerged, his heart hammering. Room 7, his room. The clock was ticking. The east corridor ended at a heavy door marked maintenance only. Warren swiped Rachel's key card. The lock disengaged with a soft click. Beyond was a concrete stairwell descending into darkness. He took the stairs 2 at a time, emerging into a basement filled with HVAC equipment and utility pipes. Another security door, another key card swipe. This one led outside into cold night air. The woods pressed close around the safe house perimeter. Floodlights swept in programmed patterns, leaving gaps of darkness. Warren timed his movement, sprinting during a blind spot and diving into the tree line as the lights swept back. Branches clawed at his face as he ran. Behind him, alarms began to wail. They discovered his escape. Shouts echoed in the night. Flashlight beams probed the forest. Warren ran harder, trusting Rachel's directions. A quarter mile felt infinite in pitch darkness with pursuers closing in. His lungs burned. His legs screamed. Then he saw it. A gray Honda, exactly where promised. He dove for the driver's side, found the keys, cranked the engine. Headlights appeared in his rearview mirror as the Honda fishtailed onto the dirt road. Gunfire, not aimed to kill, but to disable. A bullet shattered the rear windshield. Warren kept his foot on the accelerator, the car bucking over ruts and rocks. The dirt road met pavement. Warren took the turn at 60 miles per hour, the Honda's tires shrieking. The pursuing vehicle, Kirk's tactical SUV, was faster and better equipped. It gained steadily. Warren's phone buzzed. Unknown number. Answer it. Sergio's voice came through the car's Bluetooth. You're making a serious mistake. Funny, Dr. Fry said the same thing about trusting you. Rachel's daughter is 6 years old. Her name is Allison. She likes ballet and princess movies. By running, you've endangered that child. Ice flooded Warren's veins. You're threatening a 6-year-old? I'm explaining consequences. Come back now, and Allison stays safe. Keep running, and I can't protect her from my employers. Raymond White, you mean? A pause. So Rachel told you. Unfortunate. That complicates things. It simplifies them. I know you're dirty. I know White murdered my parents. I know you're trying to deliver me to him. It's not that simple. White doesn't want you dead. He wants your genetic code. He's offering $50 million for your voluntary cooperation. Full sequencing, tissue samples, then freedom and financial security for life. And I should believe that because the alternative is worse. You can't run forever, Warren. White has resources I can't match. But if you come in voluntarily, I can negotiate terms. Keep you alive. Maybe even get justice for your parents. The SUV was 2 car lengths behind now, pulling alongside. Warren saw Kirk in the driver's seat, a gun in one hand. Last chance, Sergio said. Pull over. Warren made a decision. He slammed on the brakes. The Honda screeched to a halt. Kirk's SUV shot past, unable to stop in time. Warren threw the Honda into reverse, backed up 30 yards, then took a hard turn onto a side road barely visible in the darkness. The SUV tried to follow, but Warren had a precious few seconds lead. He killed his headlights, navigating by moonlight and prayer. Behind him, the SUV's spotlight swept the woods. They'd lost him. For now. Warren drove for 2 hours, taking random turns, doubling back, using every evasion technique he could imagine. Eventually, he found himself on a rural highway heading north. The GPS said Portland was 4 hours away. At a 24-hour gas station, Warren paid cash for fuel and coffee. In the bathroom, he checked his phone. 7 missed calls from Sergio. 3 from Lori. 1 from a number he didn't recognize. He called the unknown number. Mr. McKay. A woman's voice, elderly but steady. This is Catherine Sellers. I received your letter. And about an hour ago, Dr. Rachel Fry called to warn me you were coming. I have a guest room and many answers. But you should know, they'll be watching my house. Who will? Everyone who wants the truth buried. Which means you're walking into a trap by coming here. But it may be the only trap where you'll learn enough to fight back. Warren checked his rearview mirror. Empty road, no headlights. I'm coming anyway. I expected you would. Your father was the same way. Brave to the point of foolishness. Catherine's voice softened. Paul McKay was a good man, Warren. He didn't deserve what happened to him. Neither did your mother. Come to Portland. I'll tell you everything. She gave him an address and hung up. Warren drove north into the pre-dawn darkness, toward answers that might kill him, but also toward the truth that might set him free. Chapter 5. The Architect. Warren reached Portland at 7:42 a.m., exhausted and wired on gas station coffee. Catherine Sellers lived in a modest craftsman house in a quiet neighborhood, the kind of place where nothing dramatic ever happened, which was probably the point. He parked 3 blocks away and approached on foot, watching for surveillance. A postal worker made deliveries. A jogger ran past. Everything looked normal, which meant nothing. Catherine answered his knock before he finished knocking. A thin woman in her 70s with sharp eyes and steel gray hair, pulled into a bun. She studied him intently. "You have your mother's eyes," she said finally. Diana was beautiful. "Come in quickly." The interior was cluttered with books and papers, the accumulated debris of someone who'd spent decades researching. Catherine led Warren to a back study where every surface was covered with files, photographs, and documents. "Coffee," she offered. "I've had enough to corrode my stomach lining." "Answers would be better." Catherine smiled grimly. "Direct." "Good. We don't have time for pleasantries anyway. They'll have tracked you here by now. Your phone, probably. Turn it off and remove the battery." Warren obeyed. Catherine pulled down the shades and activated what looked like a signal jammer, more sophisticated than Rachel's device. "My husband Benjamin was Helix Crown's lead geneticist," Catherine began. "He believed they were curing disease. By the time he realized the truth, he was complicit in something monstrous." She pulled out a Warren journal, Benjamin's handwriting filling the pages. Helix Crown wasn't about curing disease. It was about creating enhanced humans for military applications. Super soldiers with accelerated healing, disease immunity, extended lifespans. The funding came from defense contractors and private billionaires like Raymond White, who saw the commercial potential. "My parents were test subjects?" "Not exactly." Catherine opened a file containing photographs of a young couple Warren recognized from old family albums. Paul and Diana McKay, decades younger, smiling at the camera outside a medical facility. They were paid volunteers. Helix Crown recruited couples who wanted children but had fertility issues. They offered free treatment, experimental gene therapy that would optimize the embryo while solving the fertility problem. Warren felt sick. "I was made to order. You were the result of their last successful trial before the program collapsed. 47 couples participated over 6 years. Most embryos didn't survive to term. Those that did either died in infancy or developed severe complications. You're one of only 3 subjects who survived past age 10. The other 2 died in their 20s, one from organ failure, one from what was ruled a suicide but was likely murder." Who else knew about this? Besides the Helix team? The investors, obviously. Various government agencies that were supposed to provide oversight but were paid to look the other way. And the families themselves, though most were threatened into silence after Helix shut down. Catherine's expression hardened. "Your parents tried to speak out. Benjamin tried to help them. We all paid for it." She showed Warren another document, a death certificate for Benjamin Sweeney dated March 15th, 1992. Cause of death, cardiac arrest. Attached was a coroner's report noting unusual toxicology findings, flagged but never investigated. "Poison?" Warren asked. "Almost certainly." Benjamin had arranged to meet with a congressional investigator. He died the night before the meeting. The investigator died in a car accident 2 weeks later. Your mother died 6 months after that. Your father survived by going silent, never speaking about Helix, raising you quietly, hoping you'd live a normal life. Until someone decided I was a loose end. Until Raymond White decided the technology was worth reviving. He's been hunting down surviving subjects for their genetic material. 3 years ago, he launched a new company, Gene Future Corporation. Officially, they're developing targeted cancer therapies. Unofficially, they're trying to recreate Helix Crown's work with better technology and fewer ethical constraints. Warren thought of Dr. Sean Goff, White's head of research. Do they know about me? They do now. Your blood donation triggered alerts in medical databases White has been monitoring for decades. He sent Sergio Barnett to collect you under the guise of government protection. What does White actually want? Catherine pulled out a genetic sequencing report, decades old. Your DNA contains modifications Benjamin designed, the most stable expression of enhanced traits ever achieved. If White can decode why you succeeded where others failed, he can mass-produce the modifications. Imagine a world where genetic enhancement is available to the highest bidder. Designer babies for the elite. Super soldiers for private militaries. Workers who never get sick or tire. It's eugenics dressed up as medical progress. So, I destroy the blood samples. Go into hiding. Deny White the data. It's too late for that. Sergio already sent your genetic sequence to White's lab. They're analyzing it now. But there's something they don't know, something Benjamin built into your genes as insurance. Catherine showed Warren a complex genetic diagram. See this sequence? Benjamin called it a poison pill. Your enhanced traits are linked to a genetic instability that only activates under certain conditions. If White tries to extract and replicate your modifications without understanding the full picture, the process will fail catastrophically. Lethal mutations. Cellular breakdown. You're saying I'm booby-trapped? I'm saying Benjamin loved your parents enough to protect their son even after death. He made you invaluable, but also dangerous to weaponize. The key to stabilizing your genetics is in his research notes. Notes I've kept hidden for 30 years. She gestured to the files around them. This is Benjamin's complete helix crown documentation. Every experiment, every result, every safety protocol. White would kill to possess this, which means it's our leverage. Warren's mind raced. We trade the notes for safety? Some kind of deal with White. We trade nothing. We expose everything. Catherine's eyes blazed. We take Benjamin's research public, release it to medical journals, congressional committees, the media, destroy White's commercial advantage by making the information freely available. He can't monopolize what everyone knows. That would end genetic enhancement research entirely, close down legitimate work. Perhaps it would force the field into the light with proper oversight and ethics. Either way, it stops White from building an empire on my husband's corrupted legacy. Before Warren could respond, glass shattered in the front room. Smoke grenades bounced through the broken windows, filling the house with choking gray clouds. Catherine grabbed a fire extinguisher and a laptop bag. Back door. Now. Warren followed her through the kitchen as armed figures poured through the front entrance. Not police. No sirens or announcements. Private contractors. They burst into the backyard just as an SUV screeched into the alley. Kurt Blankenship leaned out the passenger window, gun raised. On the ground. Both of you. Catherine didn't hesitate. She hurled the fire extinguisher at Kirk's windshield. It struck with a tremendous crack, spider-webbing the glass. Kirk ducked, and Warren used the distraction to vault the back fence, pulling Catherine after him. They ran through neighboring yards, Catherine surprisingly spry for her age. Behind them, Kirk's team fanned out in pursuit. The research, Warren shouted. You left it. Backed up in 3 locations, encrypted, Catherine gasped. The laptop has access. That's all we need. They emerged onto a residential street. Catherine flagged down a passing plumber's van, shoving a wad of bills at the startled driver. $500 for a ride downtown. No questions. The driver, a heavy-set man named Dave Rogers according to his work shirt, seemed to consider the moral implications for exactly 2 seconds before taking the money. Get in. They piled into the van among pipes and wrenches. Dave drove at a sedate, law-abiding pace while Kirk's SUV screamed past in the opposite direction, looking for them. You two robbing banks or something? Dave asked conversationally. Whistleblowing, Catherine said. Close enough. Dave dropped them at a public library downtown. Catherine led Warren to a private study room and booted up her laptop. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up encrypted files. I'm uploading Benjamin's research to a dead man's switch, she explained. If I don't check in every 6 hours, it automatically releases to 50 journalists, 10 congressional offices, and 5 medical ethics boards. Why we'll know about it soon. He'll have to decide whether killing us is worth the information going public. That's a hell of a bluff. Who says I'm bluffing? Warren's admiration for this woman grew. How do we prove White ordered the murders? Sergio will deny everything. We need evidence. We need a confession. On record. Catherine smiled coldly. And I know exactly how to get one. She made a phone call, putting it on speaker. After 3 rings, a smooth voice answered. Catherine Sellers. It's been a very long time. Raymond White himself. Not long enough, Raymond. We need to talk about Benjamin's research. And about Warren McKay, who's sitting right here beside me. A pause. You have my attention. I have your entire future in my hands. Meet us tonight at the old Helix Crown facility site. Come alone, or the research goes public immediately. The facility was demolished 30 years ago. The foundation remains. You know the place. Midnight. Don't be late. Catherine hung up before White could respond. Warren stared at her. That was insane. He'll bring an army. Probably. But he'll also bring proof, documents, recordings, something to prove he owns the rights to Benjamin's work. White's ego won't let him resist. And that's when we take him down. Ow! Catherine's smile was sharp as broken glass. You're not the only one who spent 30 years preparing for this, Warren. Trust me. Tonight, we end this. Chapter 6. The Trap. The old Helix Crown site sat on 20 acres of industrial wasteland outside Portland. Contaminated soil, rusted chain-link fence, a cracked foundation where the laboratory once stood. The structure had been demolished in 1993 under court order, but the bones remained like a grave that wouldn't stay buried. Warren and Catherine arrived at 11:15 p.m., approaching through overgrown woods. Catherine moved with surprising confidence, navigating paths she'd clearly walked before. I used to bring flowers here, she said quietly, for Benjamin and all the others who died because of this place. Stupid, sentimental habit, but it helped me memorize the terrain. She led Warren to the foundation's edge, a massive concrete slab cracked by decades of weather and weeds. At the center, a steel hatch covered the old basement access. Catherine produced a key that looked original to the facility. Benjamin gave me this the day he died. Told me if anything happened, I should come here and document everything remaining below. I've kept it maintained as a fallback position. Emergency supplies, communications equipment, evidence cache. The hatch opened with a groan of protesting metal. Concrete steps descended into darkness. Catherine clicked on a flashlight, revealing a basement that was surprisingly intact. File cabinets, lab equipment under plastic tarps, a backup generator. Make yourself comfortable, Catherine said. We have an hour to prepare. Prepare for what, exactly? If White brings armed contractors, we're trapped down here. That's the idea. This basement has only one entrance but 3 escape routes. Maintenance tunnels connecting to the old facility's utility systems. White doesn't know about them. We do. She powered up the generator, and lights flickered to life. Then she opened a file cabinet and began distributing equipment. Recording devices, cameras, a laptop with satellite uplink. We're going to record White's confession. Video and audio transmitted in real time to a secure server. Even if he kills us, the evidence survives. Warren examined the camera setup. Professional grade, military spec. Where did you get this? I've had 30 years to plan and a federal wrongful death settlement that was very generous. Money well spent if it brings White down. Catherine checked her watch. He'll be here soon. You should know the full plan. White wants you alive for your genetic material. He'll try to negotiate, threaten, bargain. Let him talk. The more he reveals, the stronger our evidence. And when he's done talking, we escape through the tunnels, release the recordings, and disappear until White is arrested. Simple. Too simple, Warren thought, but he didn't have better ideas. At 11:47 p.m., they heard vehicles approaching. Warren peered through a basement window well. 3 black SUVs, doors opening to disgorge armed men. At least 15 contractors, all carrying serious hardware. And stepping out of the lead vehicle, Raymond White himself. Even at 71, White projected authority. Silver hair, perfectly styled, expensive suit, confident stride. Behind him walked Dr. Sean Goff, carrying a metal briefcase. Mr. McKay. White's voice carried across the wasteland. Catherine, I appreciate your sense of theater, meeting at the scene of your husband's greatest work. But it's cold out here. Shall we speak more comfortably? Catherine activated the recording equipment and spoke into a microphone that projected her voice through speakers Warren had noticed. Come down alone, Raymond. You and Goff. Leave your thugs outside. White consulted with his security chief, Kirk Blankenship. Warren noted with grim satisfaction. Kirk was arguing against it, but White overruled him. Ego trumping caution, just as Catherine predicted. White and Goff descended the stairs. Warren and Catherine waited in the basement center, surrounded by equipment and old ghosts. White's eyes scanned the space with barely concealed nostalgia. My God, I haven't been down here since 1991. We accomplished miracles in this room, created the future. You created abominations, Catherine shot back, and murdered anyone who objected. Strong words. Can you prove them? White's smile was cold. I've been very careful over the years. Very thorough. Then why come alone to meet us? Warren asked. If you're innocent, you'd have brought lawyers and police. Because I'm a businessman, Mr. McKay, and you represent the most valuable commodity on Earth, stable genetic enhancement. I'm prepared to offer you $20 million for exclusive rights to your genome, full sequencing, tissue samples, and your cooperation in replicating the results. So you can sell superhuman genes to the highest bidder, so I can cure disease, extend human lifespan, eliminate genetic disorders. The Helix Crown project failed because Benjamin Sweeney was too cautious, too bound by outdated ethics. With modern technology and your stable genetics as a template, I can achieve what he couldn't, human perfection. Warren felt rage building. My parents weren't pursuing perfection. They just wanted a child. And they got one. A magnificent specimen. You should be grateful. They're dead because of you. White's mask of civility slipped. They're dead because they were weak. Paul McKay threatened to expose the program when it was on the verge of breakthrough. He would have destroyed decades of research over maudlin concerns about consent and natural order. I protected the work. That's all. You ordered their deaths, Catherine said. Her recording devices were capturing everything, red lights blinking. White noticed. His eyes narrowed. Clever, but inadmissible in court. I can claim duress, manipulation, edited recordings. You have nothing. Goff stepped forward, opening his briefcase. Inside were syringes, scanning equipment, collection vials. Mr. McKay, please. This doesn't have to be adversarial. Donate samples voluntarily. Help us help humanity. Like you helped the other Helix subjects? The ones who died of complications? Goff had the grace to look uncomfortable. Those were tragic losses. But science requires sacrifice. Other people's sacrifice, Warren noted. Never yours. Enough philosophy, White snapped. He pulled out a phone and made a call. Kirk, I'm afraid our negotiation has failed. Please come collect our guests. Footsteps on the stairs. Kirk and two contractors descending. Catherine smiled. Now, Warren. Warren pulled a device from his pocket. A modified signal jammer Catherine had given him. He activated it, and every light in the basement went dark. Emergency power died. In the sudden blackness, Warren moved on muscle memory toward the escape tunnel Catherine had shown him. Chaos erupted, shouting, flashlight beams cutting through darkness. Gunfire, wild shots meant to intimidate rather than hit. Warren found the tunnel entrance, a maintenance shaft hidden behind a false wall. Catherine was already there, laptop bag in hand. They crawled through, sealing the passage behind them. The tunnel was narrow and foul-smelling and used for decades. They crawled for what felt like hours, but was probably 10 minutes, emerging in a drainage culvert half a mile from the Helix site. Behind them, lights and sirens. Kirk's team discovering the tunnel too late. Catherine checked her laptop. Recordings uploaded successfully, encrypted and distributed. White just confessed to multiple murders on camera. It's over. But Warren's instincts screamed warning. It's too easy. White's too smart to. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. Sergio Barnett's voice, urgent. Warren, listen carefully. You've been played. Catherine Sellers isn't who she claims. Check her background. Really check it. Then call me back. The line went dead. Warren looked at Catherine. In the harsh LED light of her laptop screen, her expression was unreadable. What did he say? She asked. I should check your background. And will you believe Sergio over me? Warren wanted to say no, but the analytical part of his brain was already noting inconsistencies. Catherine's equipment was too sophisticated, her planning too perfect, her knowledge too current for someone who'd supposedly spent 30 years in hiding. Who are you really? Warren asked quietly. Catherine's smile was sad. Exactly who I said. Benjamin's widow. Your parents' friend. But also, she pulled out an ID badge. Federal Bureau of Investigation. I've been undercover for 5 years. building a case against White. When you surfaced, you became the final piece, living proof of White's crimes and the bait to draw him into confessing. Catherine's expression hardened. Everything I told you is true, Warren, including that White murdered your parents. But I used you to get him. I'm sorry. Warren felt betrayed and relieved in equal measure. The recording? Real evidence, admissible in court. White will be arrested within the hour. It's over. You're safe. But as sirens approached and federal vehicles surrounded them, Warren couldn't shake Sergio's warning. If Catherine was FBI, why did Sergio want him to doubt her? What was he still missing? Chapter 7. The Double Cross. The FBI field office was modern and sterile. Fluorescent lights, beige walls, the smell of burnt coffee and bureaucracy. Warren sat in an interview room, Catherine across from him, 2 other agents flanking the door. "We need your full statement," Catherine said, her demeanor now purely professional. Everything from the blood donation to tonight. Warren recounted it all, his mind still spinning. Catherine took notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions. Through the one-way mirror, Warren sensed others watching. "What happens now?" Warren asked when he'd finished. "White is being arrested as we speak. Goff is cooperating, already providing documentation of White's illegal genetic research program. Sergio Barnett is wanted for questioning, but has disappeared. You'll be placed in protective custody until the trial. More cages, safe houses with agents you can trust. This time, for real." Catherine's expression softened. "I know you feel manipulated. You were. But everything I said about wanting justice for Benjamin and your parents, that was true. This wasn't just a case to me." Before Warren could respond, another agent entered, a senior woman with commander's bars. She whispered urgently to Catherine, whose face went pale. "What?" Warren demanded. Catherine turned to him, visibly shaken. "Raymond White is dead. Heart attack during his arrest 30 minutes ago. Sean Goff is also dead, apparent suicide in custody. And the evidence we collected tonight, it's been corrupted. Complete data loss." The room fell silent. Warren's mind raced. That's not coincidence. Someone erased it. Someone with access to your systems. Impossible. Our servers have. Someone inside, Warren interrupted. Someone who didn't want White talking. Someone with more to lose than White did. Catherine grabbed her phone, making rapid calls. But Warren already knew. Whoever was behind this was always 3 steps ahead. The door burst open. Sergio Barnett stood there, flanked by U.S. Marshals. "I need to speak with Warren McKay. Alone. Now." Catherine stood. "You're wanted for questioning. You don't get. I have a federal warrant overriding your jurisdiction. Signed 1 hour ago by a national security judge." Sergio handed her documents. "Warren McKay is classified as a matter of critical infrastructure. This investigation is above your clearance level, Agent Sellers." Catherine read the warrant, her expression darkening. "This is insane. This is necessary. Mr. McKay, with me. Please." Warren had no good options. He followed Sergio out, leaving Catherine furious and helpless behind the mirror. Sergio led him to a black SUV idling outside. Inside was a man Warren didn't recognize, early 50s, military bearing, 3 stars on his collar. General rank. "Mr. McKay, I'm General Orlando Escobar, Defense Intelligence Agency. You're in serious danger, but not from who you think. Please sit. We have much to discuss." Warren got in. The SUV pulled away from the FBI building with marshal escort. "Raymond White was a frontman," Escobar began. "The real power behind Helix Crown was never a private billionaire. It was a classified DoD program called Project Ascension. White provided civilian cover and plausible deniability. When Helix Crown collapsed publicly, Ascension continued in secret. For 30 years, Warren asked incredulously. For 33 years, we've been tracking the original subjects, studying the failures, trying to understand why the modifications usually killed their hosts. You're the answer, Mr. McKay. You're the only stable success. And now, elements within Ascension want to eliminate you to bury the program permanently. Why? Because a new administration is coming to power. One that will audit black programs like Ascension. If your existence becomes known, it proves illegal human experimentation continued long after Helix Crown was supposedly shut down. People will go to prison. Careers will end. Billions in funding will dry up. Sergio spoke up. I wasn't working for White. I was working for a faction inside Ascension that wants to preserve you, study your genetics, learn from them, but keep you alive. The people who killed White and Goff are the other faction. They want all evidence destroyed, including you. Warren's head spun. How do I know you're telling the truth? Escobar handed him a tablet displaying classified documents, Helix Crown files, Project Ascension briefings, kill orders with Warren's name on them. The authentication codes looked genuine. Because I'm offering you something White never would, the truth and a choice. Help us understand your genetics, contribute to legitimate medical research under full ethical oversight, and we'll protect you. Refuse, and the cleanup faction will hunt you forever. What about the people responsible for my parents' deaths? Dead or arrested? White's entire network is collapsing, but Ascension runs deeper. We need time to root out the bad actors without destroying the beneficial research. That requires your cooperation. Warren thought of Catherine's plan, expose everything, burn it all down. But that was before he understood the scope. This wasn't one billionaire's vanity project. This was institutional. I want guarantees, Warren said, in writing. Full legal protections. Veto power over how my genetic information is used. And I want Catherine Sellers and Dr. Rachel Fry protected too. They helped me when they didn't have to. Agreed, Escobar said. But there's one more thing. We believe there are other stable subjects, survivors who don't know what they are. We need your help finding them before the cleanup faction does. You want me to be bait again? I want you to save lives, Escobar corrected. Your choice, Mr. McKay. Warren looked out the window at the city passing by. Normal people living normal lives, unaware of the secret wars fought in the shadows. He thought of Andrea, probably worried sick. Of Vernon, annoyed by his absence. Of the ordinary existence he'd taken for granted until a blood donation changed everything. I'll help, Warren said, but on my terms. And the second I think you're lying, I'd disappear and take everything public. Deal. Escobar extended his hand. Deal. They shook, and Warren wondered if he'd just made a terrible mistake. But it was too late to back out now. Chapter 8. The Hunt. 3 months later, Warren McKay stood in a genetics laboratory at an undisclosed military facility, watching his blood cells divide under a microscope. Dr. Trina Holden, the lead researcher assigned to his case, pointed to the screen with barely contained excitement. See that? Your cells regenerate at twice the normal rate, with zero mutation accumulation. It's extraordinary, if we can isolate the mechanism. You've been saying that for 12 weeks, Warren noted. Any actual progress? Trina smiled sheepishly. Science is slow. But yes, we've identified 3 key gene sequences that seem to confer stability. The problem is they interact in ways we don't fully understand. Benjamin Sweeney was brilliant. His modifications are elegantly integrated. Warren had spent the past 3 months in protective custody that felt less like prison and more like graduate school. Daily testing, genetic analysis, consultations with ethics boards. General Escobar kept his word. Everything documented, everything consensual, everything legal. Meanwhile, Sergio Barnett's team had been hunting other Helix subjects. They'd found 2, Jennifer Anthony, a 36-year-old veterinarian in Montana, and Corey Cameron, a 29-year-old construction worker in Texas. Both showed stable modifications, though less pronounced than Warren's. Both agreed to cooperate after learning the truth. Catherine Sellers had been reinstated with the FBI, now serving as liaison between the Bureau and Project Ascension. She'd visited Warren twice. Relationships still strained, but gradually healing. Any word on the cleanup faction? Warren asked Trina. Above my clearance level. But I hear things. They've gone quiet. Too quiet. That worried Warren. Sergio believed the faction was consolidating, planning something big. But without concrete intelligence, they were blind. Warren's phone buzzed. Andrea. They've been talking regularly. Warren carefully lying about his extended medical treatment. She deserved better, but the truth would endanger her. "Hey," he answered. "Warren, where are you really?" Andrea's voice was strained. "And don't say Virginia. I called the hospital you supposedly checked into. They've never heard of you." Warren's blood went cold. "Andrea, I'm a nurse, Warren. I know medical facilities. I know procedures. Whatever you're involved in, I want to help. But I can't if you keep lying." Before Warren could respond, alarms shrieked through the facility. Red lights flashed. Trina's expression went from curious to terrified in seconds. "Breach," someone shouted over the intercom. "Security breach, level 3. All personnel evacuate." Gunfire erupted somewhere above them. Warren grabbed Trina's arm. "Where's the emergency exit?" "Sub-basement through the labs. But if they've breached level 3, they're all ready." The door exploded inward. Armed figures in black tactical gear poured through, weapons raised. But they weren't firing. They were hurting. "Warren McKay, come with us quietly." The lead operative's voice was distorted through a helmet. "Everyone else, stay down." Warren recognized the stance, the training. These weren't random attackers. These were operators. Probably former military. Probably Ascension's cleanup faction. But they wanted him alive. "Run." Warren shoved Trina toward the back exit, then bolted in the opposite direction, drawing the operatives after him. The facility descended into chaos. Scientists fleeing. Security engaging the invaders. Smoke grenades creating confusion. Warren ran through corridors he'd memorized during 3 months of careful observation. He'd known this was coming, had prepared for it. The facility had security, but security could be breached. The real question was escape. He reached the server room, where project data was stored. Sergio had given him emergency access codes for exactly this scenario. Warren uploaded everything to an encrypted cloud service, then activated the deletion protocol. If the cleanup faction wanted his genetics, they'd have to take him alive. All the research data was now beyond their reach. Footsteps behind him. Warren ducked into a ventilation shaft. Tight squeeze, but he'd practiced this route. He crawled through metal tunnels as explosions rocked the facility above. He emerged in a parking garage. His designated escape vehicle, a nondescript sedan with keys in the ignition, waited in spot G47. Sergio's contingency planning. Warren drove out through the chaos. Guards too busy fighting invaders to stop fleeing personnel. Behind him, the facility burned. He called Sergio on a secure line. They hit the lab. Multiple casualties. "I got out with the data." "Good. Meet at Rally Point Delta. We need to move you immediately." "No, I'm done running. It's time to end this." "Warren, that's not the plan." The plan failed the moment they found the facility. They're inside Ascension, Sergio. Deep inside. Feeding them locations, intelligence. "We need to draw them out. And I'm the only bait they care about." A long silence. "Then, what do you have in mind?" "I make myself visible. Public. Somewhere they can't act without exposing themselves. Somewhere with cameras and witnesses. They'll kill you. They'll try. But we'll be ready." Warren hung up and made another call. Andrea answered on the first ring. "Warren, what's happening? I heard explosions on your end. I need you to trust me. Are you somewhere safe?" "I'm at the hospital." "Warren, you're scaring me." "Good. Stay scared. Stay alert. And if anyone approaches you claiming to know me, run. Call the police. Don't trust anyone." "What are you involved in?" "Saving lives, including yours." "I love you, Andrea. Remember that." He ended the call before she could respond, hating himself but knowing it was necessary. Warren drove to Portland, to the one place where everything started and where it needed to end. The old Helix Crown facility site. This time he was ready. Chapter 9. The Resolution. Warren reached the Helix Crown site at sunset, the ruins cast in golden light that made the wasteland almost beautiful. He'd called ahead, not to Sergio, but to Catherine. The FBI would be watching. Ascension would be watching. The cleanup faction would come. All the pieces on the board, converging on one location. Warren descended into the basement again, activating lights and equipment Catherine had maintained. But this time, he added his own modifications, cameras, recording devices, weapons he'd acquired during his 3 months of preparation. He wasn't the same naive analyst who'd walked into a blood drive truck 3 months ago. He'd learned from his enemies, adapted, become what he needed to be. Dangerous. At 8:47 p.m., the first arrivals came. Sergio Barnett and a full tactical team. Genuine Ascension loyalists, according to Sergio's assurances. "This is insane," Sergio said, taking in Warren's preparations. "You're making yourself a target. I've been a target since I was born. Now I'm choosing the battlefield." At 9:15 p.m., Catherine arrived with FBI backup. She and Sergio eyed each other warily. "Jurisdictional nightmare," Catherine muttered. "But I suppose we're on the same side tonight." "Strange times," Sergio agreed. At 9:43 p.m., the cleanup faction arrived. They came in force, 20 operatives, military-grade equipment, absolute professionalism. Their commander removed his helmet, revealing a face Warren recognized from classified briefings. General Vernon McKenzie, Warren's boss, his actual boss at Apex Therapeutics. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. "Vernon, I'm sorry, Warren. Truly." Vernon's expression was regretful, but resolute. "You were never supposed to find out what you are. The blood drive was my mistake. I thought we'd screened all collection sites. When you flagged positive, I tried to contain it. But you're too smart, too resourceful. You killed White. You killed Goff. I cleaned up loose ends. Well, I was going to talk. Goff was too guilty to stay silent. But you're different. You're not a loose end, Warren. You're a miracle. The only stable expression of Helix Crown's work. If that becomes public, the program, the legitimate research that could cure disease, extend life, eliminate suffering, it all ends. Because you broke every ethical rule to achieve it, Catherine said coldly. Because we did what was necessary. Vernon's composure cracked. Do you know how many lives we could save? How many diseases we could cure? But bureaucrats and ethicists want to strangle progress with red tape and moral hand-wringing. Helix Crown failed because they published their work, drew scrutiny. Project Ascension succeeds because we operate in shadow. Sergio stepped forward. "It's over, Vernon. Stand down. Warren's already uploaded all the research. If anything happens to him, it goes public automatically." Vernon smiled sadly. "I know, which is why I'm here to negotiate, not fight. Warren, I'm offering you a deal. Work with us, voluntarily. Help us perfect the modifications. In exchange, we'll provide you with anything you want: money, security, legacy. Your parents died for this research. Don't let their sacrifice be meaningless." Warren thought of Paul McKay, raising him alone, never speaking of Helix Crown. Of Diana McKay, killed for wanting to expose the truth. Of Benjamin Sweeney, poisoned for his conscience. "My parents' sacrifice was meaningless," Warren said quietly. "Because they didn't choose it. You chose for them. Just like you're trying to choose for me now." He pulled out a remote detonator. Vernon's eyes widened. "This basement is rigged with explosives," Warren continued. "Enough to destroy everything here and everyone in it. Including me. Including the last stable Helix subject. If I die, the research dies with me. Your program ends." "You're bluffing," Vernon said, but his voice wavered. "Am I? You've read my psychological profile. Do I seem like someone who bluffs?" The standoff stretched. Vernon's operators fingered their weapons. Sergio's team mirrored them. Catherine spoke urgently into her radio, calling for more backup. "Even if you detonate," Vernon said finally, "it solves nothing. The research is in your genes. We'll extract it from your corpse if necessary." "No, you won't." Warren held up a vial, his own blood. "See this shimmer? That's the genetic instability Catherine told me about. Benjamin Sweeney's poison pill. My enhanced traits are stable while I'm alive because my living biology regulates them. But the moment I die, the instability activates. My cells break down into toxic sludge within hours. You get nothing usable." It was a lie, but a convincing one, backed by enough technical detail to seem plausible. Vernon studied Warren's expression, searching for tells. "You've changed. 3 months ago, you were terrified. 3 months ago, I didn't know what I was fighting for. Now I do. The question is, Vernon, are you willing to die for your cause? Because I'm willing to die for mine." Warren's thumb hovered over the detonator. The basement fell silent. Then Vernon lowered his weapon. "Stand down," he told his team. "It's over." "Sir," one operative protested. "I said stand down." Vernon's voice cracked. "I won't murder Warren McKay. Paul was my friend. I recruited him into Helix Crown. I promised him his son would be protected, and I've broken that promise enough." Catherine's FBI team moved in, disarming Vernon's operators. Vernon allowed himself to be handcuffed, his expression distant. "Did you order my parents' deaths?" Warren asked. "No, that was White, acting independently. But I didn't stop him when I learned what he'd done. So I'm guilty regardless." Vernon looked at Warren with something like respect. "You're stronger than your father. He will be proud." As the FBI led Vernon away, Sergio approached Warren. "The detonator?" Warren handed it over. Sergio examined it, then laughed bitterly. "Not even connected to anything. You were bluffing. I learned from the best. What happens now? Trials. Investigations. Publicity you can't avoid. Project Ascension will be exposed, shut down, rebuilt under proper oversight. Some good research will be lost, but so will a lot of crimes." Sergio extended his hand. "You did it, Warren. You won." Warren shook his hand, feeling hollow. "Doesn't feel like winning. It never does." 6 months later, Warren McKay stood in a congressional hearing room, giving testimony about Helix Crown and Project Ascension. The hearings had been running for weeks, revelations shocking the nation, careers destroyed, laws rewritten. Vernon McKenzie was in federal prison, along with 17 others. Raymond White's empire had collapsed. Sean Goff's research was being reviewed by independent ethics boards. The two other stable subjects, Jennifer Anthony and Corey Cameron, had chosen different paths. Jennifer went public, becoming an advocate for genetic research oversight. Corey disappeared, wanting nothing to do with his modified heritage. Warren had found a middle path. He worked with a team of ethicists and geneticists at Johns Hopkins, using his genetics to develop legitimate medical treatments under full transparency. The research was slow, careful, and clean. Andrea had stayed with him through it all, though the relationship was different now, tempered by truth and trauma, but deeper for it. They'd moved in together, finding normalcy in small moments. Catherine Sellers retired from the FBI, finally able to rest. She and Warren met monthly for coffee, honoring Benjamin's memory and the others who died. Rachel Fry was safe, her daughter Allison unharmed. She'd returned to nursing, though she still had nightmares. Warren's testimony concluded. As he left the hearing room, reporters swarmed with questions he'd learned to deflect. Outside, Andrea waited by the car. She smiled as Warren approached. "How'd it go?" "Same as yesterday, and the day before, and probably tomorrow too." Warren kissed her. "But it's progress. Your father would be proud," she said, echoing Vernon's words from months ago. Warren thought about Paul McKay, the accountant who carried impossible secrets, who raised his genetically modified son in quiet dignity, who died protecting the truth. About Diana McKay, who paid the ultimate price for wanting to speak out. "I hope so," Warren said. "I really hope so." They drove home through Washington traffic, just another couple navigating the ordinary challenges of life. Warren's genetic modifications made him resistant to disease, capable of accelerated healing, potentially longer-lived than normal humans. But they didn't make him immune to love, fear, hope, or pain. They didn't make him less human, just different. And Warren McKay had learned that different wasn't dangerous. It was what you did with different that mattered. He'd chosen to fight for transparency, ethics, and justice. And he'd won. Not perfectly, not without cost, but he'd won. As the sun set over the city, Warren allowed himself to feel something he hadn't felt in months. Peace. Epilogue. 5 years later, a young woman walked into a blood donation center in Seattle. The technician drew her blood, then froze, staring at the collection bag with familiar shock. "Don't move," the technician whispered. "Stay calm." And somewhere, Warren McKay's phone buzzed with an alert he'd been expecting. Another one had been found. The work continued. It always would. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there. Welcome back to another episode of Infidelity Tales Lab. We're thankful for your continued viewership. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? We love knowing our global reach. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Foundation of Lies. Rob Griffin had always prided himself on being a man who built things to last. At 42, he owned Griffin Security Solutions, a thriving private security firm that protected high-profile clients throughout Chicago. His steel gray eyes and imposing 6'3" frame commanded respect in boardrooms and back alleys alike. Rob had learned early in life that trust was a luxury he couldn't afford, except when it came to his family. The Victorian house in Lincoln Park stood as a testament to his success. Rob had purchased it 12 years ago, shortly after marrying Amanda, his college sweetheart. She was everything he thought he wanted, blonde, petite, with an infectious laugh that had first caught his attention during a Northwestern University football game. Amanda came from old money. The Whitmore family had connections stretching back to Chicago's founding fathers. Their children were Rob's pride and joy. 15-year-old Emma was brilliant, already taking advanced placement courses and showing interest in forensic science. 12-year-old Tyler was the athlete, excelling in baseball and inheriting what Rob assumed was his own competitive drive. 8-year-old Sophie was the baby, artistic and sensitive, always drawing pictures of their perfect family. What Rob didn't know was that Amanda had been systematically betraying him for over 8 years. It started innocently enough. Amanda had reconnected with Kyle Morrison, her high school boyfriend, through social media when Sophie was just 6 months old. Kyle was everything Rob wasn't, smooth-talking, effortlessly charming, and unemployed more often than not. He worked sporadically as a personal trainer and bartender, living off his trust fund and various women who found his perpetual bad boy act irresistible. Amanda told herself it was just friendship at first. Coffee meetings turned into lunch dates, which evolved into afternoon encounters at Kyle's downtown loft. By the time Sophie turned 2, Amanda was deeply entangled in an affair that would eventually consume her marriage entirely. Kyle had a particular talent for manipulation. He understood Amanda's frustrations with Rob's long work hours and demanding personality. While Rob built his business empire, Kyle whispered sweet lies about how Amanda deserved better, how she was too special to be trapped in a suburban life with a man who valued security over spontaneity. The affair wasn't just emotional, it was vindictive. Kyle encouraged Amanda to see Rob as the enemy, the obstacle standing between her and true happiness. They began meeting in their own home when Rob traveled for business. Kyle would use Rob's shower, eat his food, sleep in his bed, and corrupt his children's mother just feet away from their innocent bedrooms. Rob, meanwhile, worked tirelessly to provide for his family. His security firm had expanded to include corporate espionage prevention, personal protection for celebrities, and consultation for law enforcement. He employed former military personnel, ex-cops, and intelligence operatives. His network of contacts stretched from City Hall to the FBI's Chicago field office. Every night, Rob came home expecting to find his sanctuary. Amanda played her part perfectly, the devoted wife who had dinner ready, helped with homework, and maintained their social calendar. She was a master actress, able to compartmentalize her double life with disturbing ease. The children, unknowing pawns in their mother's deception, began unconsciously picking up Kyle's mannerisms and phrases. Emma started using expressions that Rob didn't recognize. Tyler developed a casual attitude toward authority that seemed foreign to Rob's military-influenced parenting style. Sophie drew pictures of a mysterious friend who visited when Daddy was away. Rob attributed these changes to normal childhood development, never suspecting that another man was actively influencing his children's upbringing. Amanda made sure Kyle was always gone before Rob returned from trips, covering her tracks with practiced precision. But Amanda and Kyle weren't content with just the affair. They began planning for a future together, one that would leave Rob devastated and financially ruined. Amanda started documenting Rob's long work hours, his occasional displays of temper when stressed, and his strict parenting style. She was building a case for divorce that would paint her as the neglected wife and him as the absent, controlling husband. Kyle pushed for more aggressive moves. He suggested Amanda access Rob's business accounts, gather information about his clients, and create evidence of emotional abuse. Together, they developed a timeline for leaving Rob that would maximize Amanda's financial settlement and ensure she retained primary custody of the children. The irony wasn't lost on Kyle that he was plotting against a man whose profession was literally protecting people from threats like himself. But Rob's expertise in external security made him blind to the enemy already inside his walls. As Emma approached her 16th birthday, Amanda decided it was time to accelerate their plans. She and Kyle began discussing how to reveal the truth in a way that would completely destroy Rob's sense of reality. They wanted more than just a divorce. They wanted to watch him crumble. The idea for the birthday prank came to Kyle during one of their afternoon sessions. He had always been cruel, but this suggestion revealed a level of sadism that even Amanda hadn't fully grasped. Yet she went along with it, too invested in their fantasy future to consider the devastating consequences for everyone involved. They decided to wait for Rob's birthday in April, timing their revelation for maximum psychological impact. The plan was simple but brutal. Let Rob believe he was celebrating another year of his perfect life, then destroy everything he thought he knew about himself and his family. As April approached, Rob noticed Amanda seemed unusually excited about his birthday plans. She insisted on keeping everything a surprise, claiming she wanted to make this birthday extra special. Rob, touched by what he perceived as renewed attention from his wife, looked forward to the celebration with genuine anticipation. He had no idea he was walking into an ambush that would shatter his world and unleash a side of him that Amanda and Kyle couldn't possibly imagine. Chapter 2. The Gathering Storm. The weeks leading up to Rob's birthday were filled with what he later realized were carefully orchestrated moments of deception. Amanda seemed more affectionate than she had been in months, initiating conversations about their future together, making plans for summer vacation. Rob, starved for connection with his wife, eagerly embraced what he thought was a rekindling of their romance. During this time, Kyle Morrison was making himself increasingly comfortable in Rob's life. He had convinced Amanda to introduce him as her old friend who needed a place to stay while apartment hunting. Rob, whose success had made him generous and whose work kept him frequently absent, agreed to let Kyle stay in their guest room for a few weeks. Kyle's presence in the house was a calculated psychological assault. He made subtle comments about Rob's parenting style, questioned his business decisions, and gradually positioned himself as the more understanding, available male figure. The children, particularly Tyler, began seeking Kyle's approval and advice. Emma, now 15 and more perceptive than her younger siblings, sensed something was wrong but couldn't articulate it. She noticed how her mother's behavior changed when Kyle was around. Amanda became giggly and animated in ways that seemed forced. Emma also observed that Kyle had an unsettling way of looking at her mother, like he owned something precious. Rob's business was experiencing significant growth during this period. He had just signed a major contract to provide security consulting for a high-profile corruption investigation involving city officials and organized crime figures. The case required extensive background checks, surveillance operations, and coordination with federal investigators. Ironically, while Rob was helping expose other people's secrets and betrayals, he remained oblivious to the conspiracy unfolding in his own home. His expertise in detecting deception was neutralized by his fundamental trust in Amanda and his assumption that his family was his safe harbor. Kyle, meanwhile, was gathering intelligence on Rob's business operations. He photographed documents left on Rob's home office desk, memorized the names of key clients, and even managed to overhear several sensitive phone conversations. Kyle's plan extended beyond just stealing Rob's wife. He intended to use inside information to damage Rob's professional reputation as well. Amanda provided Kyle with access to Rob's personal files, including tax returns, bank statements, and legal documents. They discovered that Rob's wealth was even more substantial than Amanda had realized. Griffin Security Solutions was valued at over $8 million, and Rob's real estate investments and retirement accounts pushed his net worth well into seven figures. This revelation made Kyle even more motivated to pursue their plan. He began pressuring Amanda to move faster, arguing that Rob might discover their affair before they could maximize their financial advantage. Kyle's growing greed and impatience started to create tension between the lovers, but Amanda was too invested in their scheme to back down. During this period, Rob made a decision that would later prove crucial. He installed a comprehensive security system throughout the house. Ostensibly for protection, given his high-profile clients, the system included hidden cameras in common areas and sophisticated audio recording capabilities. Rob informed Amanda about the obvious security features but kept the hidden surveillance to himself, a precaution born from his professional paranoia. The cameras captured everything: Amanda and Kyle's intimate conversations, their detailed planning sessions, and their mockery of Rob's trusting nature. Kyle's true character was revealed in these recordings as he described increasingly elaborate ways to humiliate and destroy Rob. Amanda, rather than being horrified by Kyle's cruelty, seemed energized by it. Rob's assistant, Patricia Holmes, a sharp-eyed former detective who had worked with Rob for 6 years, began noticing changes in her boss. Rob seemed distracted, asking her to take on more responsibilities while he focused on what he called personal matters. Patricia, whose investigative instincts remained sharp, suspected something was wrong but respected Rob's privacy. Meanwhile, the children were experiencing their own confusion and distress. Emma found herself caught between loyalty to her father and her growing awareness that something fundamental was wrong with their family dynamic. Tyler, influenced by Kyle's casual attitude toward rules and responsibility, began acting out at school and challenging Rob's authority at home. Sophie, the most sensitive of the three, started having nightmares and became clingy with Rob whenever he was home. She couldn't understand why the house felt different when the friend was there, but she instinctively sought comfort from her father during this period of instability. Rob attributed the children's behavioral changes to typical teenage and childhood phases. His demanding work schedule prevented him from spending enough time at home to recognize the deeper patterns of disruption that Kyle's presence was creating. As April approached, Amanda and Kyle finalized their plans for the birthday revelation. They decided to involve the children directly, using them as weapons in their psychological assault. Amanda convinced Emma to help with this special surprise, framing the birthday prank as a harmless joke that would make Daddy laugh. Kyle suggested they record Rob's reaction to the DNA test revelation, planning to use the footage to humiliate him further during divorce proceedings. Amanda agreed, excited by the prospect of having visual proof of Rob's emotional destruction. The final piece of their plan involved timing the revelation for maximum legal and financial advantage. Amanda had already consulted with a divorce attorney, using a false name and paying in cash. She learned exactly how to position herself as the wrong party and how to ensure she received the largest possible settlement. What neither Amanda nor Kyle realized was that Rob had spent decades preparing for betrayal, not from his family, but from business associates, clients, and adversaries. His security protocols, trust verification methods, and contingency planning were second nature. While they plotted against him, Rob was unconsciously employing the same instincts that had made him successful in his professional life. 3 days before his birthday, Rob discovered evidence of financial irregularities in one of his business accounts, small withdrawals that appeared to be unauthorized. His immediate suspicion fell on a recently fired employee, and he began a discreet investigation. This investigation would lead him to review his home security footage, setting the stage for a discovery that would change everything. The birthday trap was set, but Rob Griffin was about to prove that the most dangerous man to cross is one who builds his life on the assumption that everyone is a potential threat. Everyone except the family he trusts completely. Chapter 3: The Revelation. April 15th dawned with Amanda barely containing her nervous excitement. She had spent the morning preparing Rob's special birthday breakfast while Kyle remained strategically absent from the house. The children were in on what they believed was an elaborate surprise that would make their father happy. Emma had been reluctant to participate, but Amanda convinced her it was just a harmless prank. Rob arrived home from his morning workout to find his family gathered in the kitchen, grinning with barely suppressed excitement. The scene looked perfect. His beautiful wife, his 3 children, and an elaborate birthday spread complete with his favorite coffee and homemade pancakes. "Happy birthday, Dad," Sophie squealed, throwing her arms around his waist. Tyler and Emma added their congratulations, and Amanda kissed him with what seemed like genuine affection. The morning proceeded normally as Rob opened presents from the children, a new watch from Emma, a baseball signed by his favorite player from Tyler, and a hand-drawn portrait of the family from Sophie. Amanda saved her gift for last, presenting him with a coffee mug wrapped in elegant paper. "This one's special," Amanda said, her eyes bright with anticipation. The kids helped pick it out. Rob unwrapped the mug to reveal "World's Best Dad" printed in bold letters. He smiled, genuinely touched by the sentiment, and pulled Amanda into a warm embrace. "Thank you, sweetheart. This is perfect." "Read the bottom," Emma said quietly, her voice carrying a strange note that Rob would later recognize as reluctant participation. Rob turned the mug over to find tiny letters printed on the base. "April Fools, you're not our dad." For a moment, Rob stared at the words, his brain refusing to process their meaning. He looked up at his family, expecting to see sheepish grins and hear them shout, "Just kidding." Instead, he found Amanda's face transformed by an expression he had never seen before, cold, calculating, and oddly triumphant. "I don't understand," Rob said slowly, still holding the mug. Amanda reached into a manila envelope she had kept beside her chair and withdrew 3 DNA test results. Her hands trembled slightly, but her voice was steady. "All 3 kids belong to my ex-boyfriend," she announced, the words hanging in the air like poison gas. The silence that followed was broken only by Sophie's confused whimper. Tyler looked between his parents with growing alarm, while Emma stared at the floor, clearly regretting her participation in what she now understood was not a harmless prank. Rob's mind, trained by years of crisis management and threat assessment, went completely blank for several seconds. Then, with mechanical precision, he set down the mug and extended his hand for the DNA results. The documents were professionally prepared, comparing his DNA profile with each child's. The results were unambiguous. Probability of paternity, 0%. Rob Griffin was not the biological father of Emma, Tyler, or Sophie. "How long?" Rob asked, his voice unnaturally calm. "Emma was 6 months old when Kyle and I reconnected," Amanda said, her earlier nervousness replaced by what appeared to be relief. "Tyler and Sophie, they've always been his." Rob looked at his children, or rather, the children he had raised, loved, and considered his own for 15 years. Emma was crying silently. Tyler looked like he might be sick. Sophie clung to her mother's leg, sensing that something terrible was happening, but not understanding what. "Where is he?" Rob asked. "Kyle? He's—" Amanda paused, realizing she was about to reveal more than she intended. "Here," came a voice from the kitchen doorway. Kyle Morrison stepped into view, leaning casually against the doorframe with a smug expression that Rob would remember for the rest of his life. "Surprise, Rob." The pieces clicked into place with devastating clarity. The house guest, the children's changing behavior, Amanda's recent mood swings, and secretive phone calls. Rob had been living with his wife's lover, supporting him, feeding him, and providing him with unlimited access to destroy their family from within. Rob stood slowly, his considerable frame casting a shadow across the kitchen table. Kyle, despite his bravado, unconsciously took a step back. There was something in Rob's eyes that triggered a primal survival instinct. "Rob, please," Amanda started, but he held up a hand for silence. "Kids, go to your rooms," Rob said quietly. "But Dad," Tyler began. "Go to your rooms," The command was delivered with military precision that brooked no argument. The children scattered, Emma helping guide a sobbing Sophie upstairs. Once they were alone, Rob turned his attention to Kyle. "You've been living in my house." "For 3 months," Kyle replied with a grin. "Nice place. Great shower pressure." Rob's hands clenched into fists, but his voice remained eerily controlled. "And you've been fucking my wife in my bed." Among other places, Kyle said, his arrogance overwhelming his survival instincts. "She's quite enthusiastic when she's not pretending to be the perfect suburban housewife." Amanda looked horrified by Kyle's crudeness, but it was too late to control the situation now. Rob nodded slowly, processing this information with the same methodical approach he used for complex security assessments. "I see." He walked to his home office, leaving Amanda and Kyle in the kitchen. They heard him making a phone call, his voice too low to make out the words. When he returned 5 minutes later, he was carrying a briefcase. "Amanda, you're going to receive an email within the hour," Rob said. "I suggest you read it carefully." "What kind of email?" she asked, her newfound confidence beginning to waver. "Divorce papers, custody petitions, fraud charges. The usual documentation when someone discovers they've been systematically robbed and betrayed for 8 years. Kyle laughed. "Good luck proving fraud, old man. Amanda's been the perfect wife and mother. Any court will see that." Rob turned to Kyle with the kind of smile that had made hardened criminals nervous during his law enforcement consulting work. "Kyle Morrison, born August 12, 1981. Last known address before moving into my guest room was a studio apartment in Wicker Park, evicted 3 months ago for non-payment. Current employment status, unemployed. Trust fund depleted as of December 2023 due to gambling debts." Kyle's smirk faded. "How do you?" Criminal history includes 2 DUIs, 1 domestic violence charge that was dropped, and 3 restraining orders filed by former girlfriends. Most recently, Sarah Chun, who you stalked for 6 months after she ended your relationship. Amanda stared at Kyle in shock. These details had never come up in their conversations. "I run a security firm, Kyle. Background checks are what I do for a living." Rob opened his briefcase and withdrew a thick folder. "This is everything about you going back to high school. Your relationship patterns, your financial irresponsibility, your propensity for violence when you don't get your way." Rob turned to Amanda. "And this folder contains documentation of every lie you've told me over the past 8 years. Every fake girls' night out. Every fabricated work obligation. Every time you used our children as alibis while you were betraying our family." Amanda's face had gone pale. "You've been spying on us?" "I've been protecting my assets," Rob corrected. "Something I should have done more thoroughly years ago." Kyle stepped forward aggressively. "You can't prove anything, and you can't stop us from being together. Amanda loves me, not you." Rob's smile widened. "Kyle, do you know what I discovered when I reviewed the footage from my security cameras this morning?" The blood drained from Kyle's face. "Everything. Your planning sessions. Your mockery of my trust. Your detailed discussions about how to destroy me financially and emotionally. Your suggestions about using my children as weapons." Rob paused. "And your confession to several felonies, including identity theft and credit card fraud." Amanda sank into a chair, the full scope of their exposure beginning to dawn on her. "But here's my favorite part," Rob continued, his voice gaining an edge that made Kyle unconsciously step back again. "Your detailed plan to humiliate me with this birthday surprise, including your intention to record my reaction and use it against me in court." Rob reached into his briefcase and withdrew a tablet, showing them a freeze frame of themselves from the previous evening, clearly identifiable as they discussed their final preparations. "Guess what, Kyle? I've been recording too." The kitchen fell silent except for the sound of Sophie crying upstairs. Rob closed his briefcase and headed for the door. "Where are you going?" Amanda called after him. Rob paused in the doorway. "To destroy you both. Completely and permanently." The front door closed behind him with a finality that made Amanda realize she had just awakened something in her husband that she never knew existed, and that Kyle had seriously underestimated the man whose life they had chosen to demolish. Within 30 minutes, Amanda's phone buzzed with an email notification. The message was from Rob's attorney and contained legal documents that would begin the systematic dismantling of everything she thought she had gained through her betrayal. But that was just the beginning. Chapter 4: The Architect of Ruin. Rob drove to his office in downtown Chicago with the methodical calm of a man who had just shifted from victim to predator. The emotional devastation of the morning's revelation was contained in a locked compartment of his mind, set aside while he focused on what he did best: systematic problem-solving and strategic retaliation. Griffin Security Solutions occupied 3 floors of a converted warehouse in the River North District. Rob's employees were accustomed to handling sensitive situations, but what their boss was about to unleash would test the limits of their professional discretion. Patricia Holmes was waiting in Rob's office when he arrived, her weathered face showing concern. As his right hand and former Chicago PD detective, Patricia had an intuitive understanding of when situations were about to become complicated. "The background check on Kyle Morrison is on your desk," she said without preamble, "along with some additional information you didn't request, but probably need to know." Rob settled behind his mahogany desk and opened the comprehensive file Patricia had compiled. Kyle's history was worse than even Rob had suspected. Beyond the criminal record and financial irresponsibility, Patricia had uncovered a pattern of predatory behavior toward wealthy women, psychological manipulation, and what appeared to be a systematic approach to infiltrating and destroying stable relationships. "He's done this before," Patricia observed, "3 times in the past 10 years. Always targets married women with significant assets. The relationships follow an identical pattern: emotional manipulation, affair, encouragement of divorce, and then disappearance once the financial settlements are finalized." Rob absorbed this information without visible emotion. What happened to the previous targets? 2 divorces resulted in substantial settlements that Kyle helped spin into bankruptcy. The third woman, Jennifer Walsh, committed suicide 6 months after Kyle disappeared with her money. The temperature in the office seemed to drop 10 degrees. Patricia had worked with Rob long enough to recognize the look that crossed his face, the same expression he wore when dealing with threats to his high-profile clients. "Give me everything on Jennifer Walsh. Medical records, police reports, witness statements." "And Patricia?" Rob looked up from the file. "This is now a Priority 1 investigation. Full resources." "What's the assignment?" Patricia asked, though she suspected she already knew. "Total destruction. Legal, financial, social, and psychological. I want Kyle Morrison and my wife to understand what happens when someone mistakes my kindness for weakness." Patricia nodded grimly. She had been waiting for someone to make this mistake. "What about the kids?" For the first time that day, Rob's composure cracked slightly. "They're victims in this, but they're also not mine, and Amanda's going to learn that actions have consequences that extend beyond just her own life." Rob spent the next 4 hours with his senior team, laying out a comprehensive strategy that would utilize every aspect of his firm's capabilities. His employees included former FBI agents, retired military intelligence officers, ex-prosecutors, and specialists in financial forensics. What they were about to undertake went far beyond standard divorce proceedings. The first phase involved legal maneuvering. Rob's attorney, Martin Kellerman, had already filed emergency motions for asset protection, immediate separation, and full custody pending DNA verification. But Kellerman was also implementing more aggressive strategies designed to expose Amanda's adultery in the most damaging ways possible. "We're filing for divorce on grounds of adultery, fraud, and emotional cruelty," Kellerman explained during their afternoon meeting. "The DNA evidence, combined with your security footage, gives us an overwhelming case. Amanda will be lucky to receive minimal support, and Kyle can be charged with several felonies." "That's not enough," Rob replied. "I want them to wish they had never been born." The second phase involved financial warfare. Rob's forensic accountants discovered that Amanda had been slowly siphoning money from their joint accounts to fund her lifestyle with Kyle. More damaging, she had used Rob's business credit cards to pay for hotel rooms, expensive dinners, and gifts for her lover. But Rob's most devastating discovery came from his cybersecurity team. Kyle had been using Rob's home internet to access his own accounts, leaving a digital trail that revealed the full scope of his criminal activities. Kyle had been running credit card scams, identity theft operations, and online fraud schemes, all from Rob's house, potentially implicating Rob in federal crimes. He's been using your home as his base of operations for multiple felonies, explained Marcus Chun, Rob's head of cybersecurity. We have evidence of over $200,000 in fraudulent transactions, all traceable to IP addresses from your home network. Rob smiled for the first time that day. That gives us leverage. The third phase was psychological warfare, and this was where Rob's skills as a security consultant became truly dangerous. He understood how to identify vulnerabilities, exploit weaknesses, and create maximum psychological pressure. Kyle Morrison thought he was dealing with a cuckolded suburban husband. He had no idea he was now the target of a man who had spent 2 decades learning how to neutralize threats from every angle. Rob's investigation revealed that Kyle's mother, Dorothy Morrison, was a devout Catholic living in a retirement community in Florida. She believed her son was a successful business consultant and sent him monthly checks from her Social Security to help with his investments. Kyle had been lying to his elderly mother for years while stealing her limited income. Amanda's parents, the prestigious Whitmore family, had never fully approved of Rob's working-class background. They tolerated him because of his success, but they had always hoped Amanda would find someone more suitable. They had no idea their daughter was destroying her marriage for a criminal who was using their family name to run con games. Both Kyle and Amanda had vulnerabilities that could be exploited through their social circles, professional contacts, and family relationships. Rob began planning a systematic campaign to expose them in every sphere of their lives. As the day progressed, Rob received regular updates on Amanda and Kyle's activities. His surveillance team reported that they had spent the afternoon at Kyle's apartment, apparently celebrating their successful revelation. They were observed drinking champagne and making phone calls to what appeared to be divorce attorneys and real estate agents. They think they've won, Patricia observed as she delivered the latest surveillance report. Let them think that for a few more hours, Rob replied. Tomorrow, they're going to discover what losing actually feels like. That evening, Rob returned to his house one final time. He had arranged for a moving crew to pack his belongings and transfer them to a secure location. He would never again sleep under the same roof as the people who had betrayed him. The children were in their rooms, confused and traumatized by the day's events. Rob knocked on each door, speaking briefly with Emma, Tyler, and Sophie. He explained that he would always love them, but their mother's choices had made it impossible for their family to continue as it was. Emma, mature beyond her 15 years, asked the question Rob had been dreading. Are you going to try to get custody of us? Rob looked at this girl he had raised from birth, seen through every milestone and challenge, and felt his heart break all over again. I don't know, sweetheart. Legally, I have no rights. But I want you to know that none of this is your fault, and I will always be here if you need me. Amanda tried to intercept him as he left with his packed belongings, but Rob walked past her without acknowledgement. Kyle was nowhere to be seen, apparently having enough self-preservation instinct to avoid a direct confrontation. As Rob loaded his car, he noticed several neighbors watching from their windows. The Whitmore Griffin family had been pillars of the community, and news of their implosion would spread quickly through their social circles. This was exactly what Rob wanted: maximum visibility for Amanda's disgrace. The next morning, Amanda would wake up to discover that her comfortable world had been systematically dismantled during the night. Rob had spent 15 years building a life of security and stability. He would spend the next several months proving that he was equally skilled at destroying everything he had once protected. The war had begun, and Kyle Morrison was about to learn that he had chosen the wrong family to destroy. Chapter 5: The Systematic Dismantling. Dawn broke over Chicago as Rob implemented the first phase of his comprehensive revenge strategy. While Amanda and Kyle slept peacefully in what was still technically Rob's house, a series of carefully coordinated actions began to unravel their lives. At 6 a.m., federal agents raided Kyle's previous apartment based on evidence Rob had provided about his cybercrime activities. Kyle's former roommate, unaware that his internet had been used for identity theft and credit card fraud, was arrested along with two other men who had been unknowingly involved in Kyle's schemes. Simultaneously, Rob's attorney filed emergency motions with the Cook County Circuit Court. Amanda woke to find sheriff's deputies at her door with court orders freezing all joint bank accounts, credit cards, and investment portfolios. She was also served with a temporary restraining order requiring Kyle to vacate the premises within 24 hours. What the hell is happening? Kyle demanded as he read the legal documents over Amanda's shoulder. Rob is happening, Amanda replied, her voice shaking as the reality of her situation began to sink in. He's not just divorcing me. He's trying to destroy us. Amanda's first call was to the divorce attorney she had consulted weeks earlier. The lawyer's response was devastating. Mrs. Griffin, given the evidence your husband has presented, my firm cannot represent you. There are clear conflicts of interest, and frankly, your position is legally untenable. 3 other attorneys gave Amanda similar responses. Rob's legal team had been busy since dawn, sharing just enough information with major family law firms to create conflicts of interest that would prevent Amanda from obtaining quality representation. Meanwhile, Kyle discovered that his mother's monthly support checks had been frozen. Dorothy Morrison had received a detailed package from a concerned family friend containing evidence of Kyle's criminal activities, his lies about his career, and photographs of him with multiple women. The elderly woman, heartbroken and humiliated, had immediately contacted her bank to stop all financial support. But Rob's most devastating move targeted Amanda's family directly. The Whitmore family had built their reputation over generations, maintaining an image of respectability that was essential to their social standing and business connections. Rob shattered that image with surgical precision. By 10 a.m., every member of Chicago's elite social circles had received an elegant package containing professionally printed photographs of Amanda and Kyle in compromising positions, along with a tastefully worded explanation of how Amanda had betrayed her family while using the Whitmore name to facilitate her deception. Amanda's father, Reginald Whitmore III, called her within an hour of receiving his package. "How could you do this to our family?" he demanded, his voice filled with more pain than anger. "The Whitmore name has been respected in this city for over a century. You destroyed that in a single morning." "Daddy, I can explain." "There is no explanation that excuses this behavior, Amanda. You've humiliated your mother, disgraced our family, and betrayed a good man who loved you. Do not contact us again until you've found some way to repair the damage you've caused." The line went dead, severing Amanda's connection to the family wealth and social standing she had always taken for granted. Kyle fared even worse. Rob's investigation had revealed that Kyle was already on probation for his previous DUI conviction. The evidence of his cybercrime activities violated the terms of his probation, triggering an immediate arrest warrant. More damaging, Rob had shared Kyle's criminal history and current activities with Sarah Chun, Kyle's ex-girlfriend who had filed a restraining order against him. Sarah was now a prosecutor with the Cook County State's Attorney's Office, and she was very interested in finally building a case that would put Kyle behind bars. By noon, Kyle's photograph was circulating through Chicago's law enforcement network as a person of interest in multiple ongoing investigations. Every bar, gym, and social venue where Kyle had worked or spent time received visits from police officers asking questions about his activities and associates. Amanda tried to reach out to her friends for support, but discovered that Rob's morning package distribution had been thorough. Her closest friends were treating her like a social pariah, unwilling to risk their own reputations by associating with someone who had become the subject of scandalous gossip. The children, caught in the middle of this warfare, were experiencing their own trauma. Emma came home from school to find classmates whispering about her family's drama. Tyler was kicked off his baseball team when his coach decided the family situation was too much of a distraction. Sophie, too young to understand the complexity of the situation, kept asking when Daddy Rob was coming home. Amanda's attempts to explain were met with tears and confusion that broke what remained of Amanda's emotional stability. Kyle, meanwhile, was discovering that Rob's network of contacts extended far beyond what he had imagined. The bartending job Kyle had lined up for the weekend was suddenly unavailable when the bar owner received a visit from his security consultant, who shared concerns about Kyle's background. The personal trainer certification Kyle used to find work was suspended pending an investigation into complaints about his conduct with female clients. These complaints, filed by women Rob's team, had located and encouraged to come forward, painted a picture of systematic predatory behavior. Most devastating of all, Kyle learned that Jennifer Walsh's suicide had left behind a detailed journal documenting his psychological abuse and financial manipulation. Her family had provided this journal to Rob's investigators, creating evidence that could support criminal charges beyond simple fraud. As the day progressed, Amanda and Kyle realized they were facing coordinated assault from multiple directions. Legal, financial, social, and psychological pressure was being applied simultaneously, creating a sense of helplessness that neither had experienced before. "We need to leave Chicago," Kyle told Amanda as they sat in her kitchen, surrounded by legal documents and facing an uncertain future. "Start over somewhere else." "With what money?" Amanda replied bitterly. "Rob has frozen everything. I can't even access my own checking account." "Then we'll figure something out. People bounce back from stuff like this all the time." Amanda looked at Kyle with growing clarity. For the first time, she was seeing him without the romantic filter that had clouded her judgment for years. He was a weak, selfish man who had led her into a disaster that was destroying everything she had built over 15 years of marriage. "This is your fault," she said quietly. "The DNA tests, the recording, the public humiliation, that was all your idea." Kyle's response revealed his true character. "You're the one who chose to cheat, Amanda. I just gave you the opportunity." As evening approached, Rob received status reports from all fronts of his campaign. Phase 1 had been executed flawlessly. Amanda was isolated. Kyle was facing multiple legal troubles, and their relationship was beginning to fracture under pressure. But Rob was just getting started. Phase 2 would target their ability to rebuild their lives anywhere, ensuring that their betrayal would follow them wherever they try to run. Patricia knocked on Rob's office door as he reviewed the day's accomplishments. "Kyle Morrison just contacted a bail bondsman. Looks like he's expecting to be arrested soon." Rob smiled grimly. "He's smarter than I thought, but not smart enough." Phase 2 would begin tomorrow, and by the end of the week, Amanda and Kyle would understand that crossing Rob Griffin had been the worst decision of their lives. Chapter 6: The Tightening Noose. 3 days after the birthday revelation, Amanda sat in a cramped studio apartment in Uptown, the only place she could afford with her frozen assets and destroyed reputation. Kyle had been arrested the previous evening on federal cybercrime charges, and Amanda was finally grasping the full scope of Rob's methodical destruction of their lives. The arrest had been particularly humiliating. Federal agents had waited until Kyle was leaving his favorite bar, where he had been loudly complaining to anyone who would listen about Rob's vindictive behavior. The arrest was conducted in full view of Kyle's social circle, ensuring maximum publicity for his downfall. Amanda's temporary attorney, a recent law school graduate who was the only lawyer willing to take her case, delivered devastating news during their morning meeting. "Mrs. Griffin, your husband's evidence is overwhelming," the young lawyer explained. "The DNA tests, the surveillance footage, the financial records, there's no defense strategy that could minimize your liability. Your best option is to accept whatever settlement offer he makes." "What kind of settlement?" Amanda asked, though she dreaded the answer. "Given the circumstances, you might receive minimal spousal support for a limited time period. The house, the savings, the investment accounts, all of that will likely go to your husband. And regarding custody of the children," Amanda's blood ran cold. "What about custody?" "Legally, Mr. Griffin has no parental rights since he's not the biological father. However, he's filed motions claiming that your adultery and deception constitute child endangerment. If successful, this could impact your custody arrangement with the biological father." The irony was devastating. Amanda had spent years planning to take Rob's money and children, only to discover that her betrayal had eliminated both possibilities. Meanwhile, Kyle was learning about Rob's reach from his jail cell. His cellmate, a career criminal named Marcus Williams, had an interesting story to share. "You picked the wrong guy to screw with," Marcus told Kyle during their first night together. "Word on the street is that Griffin has connections with everyone from the FBI to the Chicago outfit. My cousin works security at the federal building, and he says your case has been fast-tracked." Kyle scoffed. "He's just a private security guy. How much pull could he really have?" Marcus laughed. "You really don't know who you're dealing with, do you? Griffin Security Solutions handles protection for half the judges in this city, corporate investigations for major law firms, and consultation work for federal agencies. The man has files on everyone who matters in Chicago." The truth was more complex than Marcus understood, but not far from accurate. Rob had spent 2 decades building relationships with law enforcement, judiciary, and political figures. His firm's reputation for discretion and effectiveness had made him invaluable to powerful people who occasionally needed sensitive problems resolved. Now Rob was calling in those favors. Judge Patricia Morrison, no relation to Kyle, had been a client of Griffin Security Solutions when her daughter received stalking threats from an ex-boyfriend. Rob's team had resolved the situation quietly and effectively. When Rob's attorney requested an expedited hearing for the divorce proceedings, Judge Morrison was happy to accommodate. FBI agent David Chun had worked with Rob on multiple cases involving corporate espionage and organized crime connections. When evidence of Kyle's cybercrime activities arrived on Agent Chen's desk, he personally ensured the case received immediate attention. Cook County State's Attorney Lisa Walsh was Jennifer Walsh's older sister. When she learned that Kyle Morrison was the man who had driven her sister to suicide, she made his prosecution a personal priority. Rob's network was extensive, legitimate, and now fully activated against Amanda and Kyle. But Rob's most devastating move was still to come. He had discovered that Kyle's trust fund money hadn't been lost to gambling debts, as Kyle claimed. Instead, Kyle had been systematically embezzling from his own family's charitable foundation, using forged documents and his mother's diminished mental capacity to cover his crimes. The Morrison Family Foundation had been providing scholarships to underprivileged children for over 30 years. Kyle's theft had affected hundreds of families, making his crimes both personal and public. When this information was released to the media, Kyle's case transformed from a simple fraud investigation into a major news story. Amanda watched the evening news in horror as Kyle's mugshot appeared on screen, accompanied by reports about his theft from children's scholarships and his history of targeting wealthy women. The story painted her as either a willing accomplice or a pathetic victim, neither of which helped her situation. The social destruction was complete. Amanda's former friends actively avoided her, crossing streets to prevent accidental encounters. Her children were experiencing constant harassment at school, with classmates asking invasive questions about their real father and their mother's affair. Emma, showing maturity beyond her years, confronted Amanda directly. "Mom, you need to fix this," the 15-year-old said. "Tyler is getting into fights every day, Sophie cries herself to sleep, and everyone at school treats us like we're criminals. I'm trying, sweetheart, but..." "No, you're not trying. You're sitting here feeling sorry for yourself while our lives fall apart." Rob, Dad, whatever I'm supposed to call him now, he raised us for 15 years. He was there for every game, every school play, every time we were sick. And you destroyed that for what? For Kyle. Emma's words cut deeper than any legal document or financial penalty. Amanda was confronting the reality that her choices had devastated not just her marriage, but her children's entire sense of identity and security. Kyle, meanwhile, was discovering that jail was just the beginning of his problems. Word of his crimes had spread through the facility, and inmates had little tolerance for men who stole from children and elderly women. His requests for protective custody were denied due to overcrowding issues, a situation Rob's contacts in the system had quietly arranged. The psychological pressure was becoming unbearable. Amanda found herself calling Rob repeatedly, but his number had been changed. His assistant Patricia answered calls to his business line with professional courtesy, but made it clear that Mr. Griffin was not available for personal communications. Amanda's attempts to reach out through mutual friends were equally unsuccessful. Rob had systematically contacted everyone in their social circle, providing just enough information to ensure Amanda was ostracized without creating legal liability for defamation. By the end of the week, Amanda realized that Kyle's suggestion to leave Chicago was no longer optional. It was essential for survival. But Kyle was facing federal charges that would prevent him from traveling, and Amanda had no resources to start over anywhere else. The final blow came when Amanda received notification that her temporary housing was being terminated. The landlord had received complaints from other tenants about criminal activity and media attention. Amanda was given 48 hours to vacate. With nowhere to turn, Amanda made the most difficult decision of her life. She called Rob's attorney and requested a meeting to discuss settlement terms. Mrs. Griffin, Martin Kellerman said when they met the next morning, "My client is prepared to be remarkably generous under the circumstances." Amanda listened as the attorney outlined Rob's offer. She would receive $2,000 per month in spousal support for exactly 2 years. She would have no claim to any marital assets, property, or investments. She would be required to sign a comprehensive non-disclosure agreement, preventing her from discussing the marriage or divorce publicly. Most importantly, she would agree to cooperate in Kyle's prosecution and provide testimony about his criminal activities. "And if I refuse?" Amanda asked. "Then my client will pursue civil litigation for fraud, theft, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Based on our calculations, you could be liable for damages exceeding $1 million. Additionally, we would share our evidence with Child Protective Services, potentially impacting your custody of the children." Amanda realized she had no choice. Rob had constructed a perfect trap, offering her just enough to survive while ensuring she could never rebuild the life she had destroyed. As she signed the settlement documents, Amanda understood that Rob's revenge was more sophisticated than simple punishment. He had methodically eliminated every advantage she thought she possessed, every resource she had counted on, and every relationship she valued. Kyle would spend the next several years in federal prison. Amanda would spend the rest of her life as a cautionary tale about the consequences of betraying a man who had dedicated his career to protecting others from threats exactly like the one she had become. Rob Griffin had proven that the most dangerous enemy is the one who builds trust professionally and applies that expertise personally when betrayed. Chapter 7. The Final Judgment. 2 weeks after Amanda signed the settlement agreement, Kyle Morrison's federal trial began with media attention that exceeded even Rob's expectations. The case had captured public interest because it combined romance scandal with child exploitation, creating a perfect storm of social outrage. Rob attended every day of the trial, sitting in the gallery with the composed demeanor of a man watching justice unfold exactly as planned. His presence was a constant reminder to Kyle of the scope and precision of his downfall. The prosecution, led by Assistant U.S. Attorney Sarah Chun, who had recused herself from the case due to personal history but provided guidance to her colleague, presented overwhelming evidence of Kyle's crimes. Bank records, digital forensics, and witness testimony painted a picture of systematic fraud spanning nearly 5 years. Amanda was called as a prosecution witness, forced to testify about Kyle's admissions regarding his criminal activities. Under oath, she revealed conversations where Kyle had bragged about his ability to manipulate marks and described his theft from the Morrison Family Foundation as borrowing from stupid kids who wouldn't miss it. Kyle's defense attorney, a public defender overwhelmed by the evidence, could only argue for reduced sentencing based on Kyle's difficult childhood and substance abuse issues. The strategy backfired when the prosecution presented evidence that Kyle had fabricated most of his sob story, including claims about an abusive father who had actually died heroically while serving as a firefighter. The most damaging testimony came from Kyle's previous victims. Rob's investigators had located 6 women whom Kyle had systematically defrauded over the past decade. Their stories revealed a pattern of predatory behavior that went far beyond simple financial crimes. Jennifer Walsh's sister, Lisa, delivered victim impact testimony that left the courtroom in stunned silence. She described finding Jennifer's body, reading her sister's journal documenting Kyle's psychological abuse, and living with the knowledge that her sister's death could have been prevented if Kyle's pattern had been exposed earlier. Kyle Morrison is a predator who destroys families for sport, Lisa testified. He doesn't just steal money. He steals hope, trust, and in my sister's case, the will to live. Rob had orchestrated every aspect of the trial's coverage, ensuring that Kyle's conviction would be both legally complete and socially devastating. Local news outlets received regular updates about the proceedings, with particular emphasis on Kyle's theft from children's scholarships and his role in Jennifer Walsh's suicide. The trial lasted 6 days. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all counts: wire fraud, identity theft, money laundering, and racketeering. Kyle Morrison was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison with no possibility of parole. As Kyle was led away in shackles, he looked directly at Rob for the first time since the birthday revelation. The expression on Kyle's face was pure hatred mixed with grudging respect for an adversary who had outplayed him completely. Amanda watched from the gallery as the man she had sacrificed her family for was reduced to a number in the federal prison system. The reality of her situation crystallized. She had destroyed 15 years of marriage for a criminal who was now permanently removed from her life. But Rob wasn't finished with Amanda. Following Kyle's conviction, Rob implemented the final phase of his revenge strategy. He had been quietly building a case for custodial interference, arguing that Amanda's deception about the children's paternity constituted child abuse that warranted state intervention. The argument was legally complex but emotionally compelling. By lying about their biological father's identity, Amanda had deprived Emma, Tyler, and Sophie of their true family heritage while forcing them to maintain relationships based on false pretenses. Child Protective Services, armed with evidence Rob had provided, opened an investigation into Amanda's fitness as a parent. The investigation revealed concerning patterns: the children's behavioral problems since the revelation, their academic performance decline, and their expressed confusion about their identity and family relationships. Emma, now 16 and legally able to express her preferences, requested to remain with Rob despite the lack of biological connection. Tyler and Sophie, interviewed by court-appointed advocates, consistently expressed distress about their mother's deception and uncertainty about their future. The biological father, Kyle Morrison, was obviously unavailable to provide care from federal prison. His family, devastated by the revelation of his crimes and the destruction of their charitable foundation, wanted no involvement with his children. Rob's attorneys argued that he had been the children's de facto father for their entire lives, providing emotional and financial support while developing authentic parent-child relationships. Amanda's deception, they contended, should not be allowed to punish the children by severing their connection to the only father they had ever known. The custody hearing was unlike anything Amanda had experienced during the divorce proceedings. Instead of facing Rob's legal team, she was confronting child welfare advocates, family court psychologists, and her own children's expressed preferences. Emma testified on her own behalf, requesting continued contact with Rob while expressing anger toward her mother for lying about everything that mattered. Tyler, now 13 and deeply confused about his identity, told the court he wanted to maintain relationships with both Rob and Amanda, but needed time to understand who he really was. Sophie, too young for formal testimony, was interviewed by child psychologists who reported that she consistently referred to Rob as Daddy and expressed anxiety about living with Amanda without understanding why. The court's decision was unprecedented but legally sound. While Rob had no biological claim to the children, his role as their primary father figure for 15 years created a compelling interest in maintaining those relationships. Amanda would retain legal custody, but Rob was granted extensive visitation rights and shared decision-making authority for major life decisions. More damaging to Amanda, the court ordered comprehensive family therapy and parenting classes, with the understanding that future custody arrangements would depend on Amanda's ability to address the psychological harm her deception had caused. Rob had achieved something remarkable. Despite having no biological relationship to the children, he had secured legal recognition as their father while ensuring Amanda would spend years proving her fitness as a parent. The final insult came when Amanda realized the financial implications of the custody arrangement. Rob's settlement offer had been calculated to provide minimal support, while the court order required him to continue contributing to the children's expenses he could control through his decision-making authority. Amanda was receiving $2,000 per month, while Rob maintained financial influence over the children's lives, creating a permanent reminder of her dependence on his generosity. 6 months after the birthday revelation, Amanda found herself living in a modest apartment in a distant suburb, working as a receptionist for a small business, and seeing her children according to a schedule determined by court order and Rob's availability. Kyle Morrison was serving his federal sentence while facing additional state charges related to the Morrison Family Foundation theft. His earliest possible release date was more than a decade away. Rob had returned to his successful business, purchased a new home in a prestigious neighborhood, and maintained active relationships with the children he had raised. His reputation, far from being damaged by the scandal, was enhanced by his measured response to betrayal and his commitment to the children's welfare. Emma chose to spend most of her time with Rob, effectively living with him while maintaining minimal contact with Amanda. Tyler split his time more evenly, but clearly looked to Rob for guidance and support. Sophie, still young enough to adapt, gradually adjusted to the new arrangement while maintaining love for both parental figures. The social consequences for Amanda were permanent. Her former friends treated her as a cautionary tale. Her family maintained distant but disapproving contact, and potential romantic partners were deterred by the dramatic circumstances of her divorce. Rob had proven that revenge could be both comprehensive and legal, both devastating and morally justified. He had protected himself, punished his betrayers, and secured his relationship with the children he loved, all while maintaining his reputation and professional standing. Amanda learned too late that destroying the life of a man whose profession was protecting others from destruction was not just unwise, it was impossible. Rob Griffin had spent 20 years preparing for threats, and when the threat came from within his own family, his response was everything his enemies should have expected and everything his former wife never saw coming. Chapter 8: The Reckoning. 1 year after the birthday revelation, Amanda sat in her cramped apartment reviewing the wreckage of her life with a clarity that only comes from complete defeat. The anniversary had passed without acknowledgement from anyone. Not the children, not her family, and certainly not Kyle, who was now serving his sentence in a federal facility in downstate Illinois. Her job as a medical office receptionist provided just enough income to cover her basic expenses, but the work was mindless and unfulfilling compared to her previous life as an affluent suburban housewife. Every day was a reminder of what she had lost: financial security, social standing, and most painfully, her children's respect and trust. Emma, now 17, had effectively severed their relationship. The teenager lived with Rob full-time, visiting Amanda only when court-ordered and maintaining cold, formal interactions that broke Amanda's heart. Emma's college applications listed Rob as her father, and she had legally petitioned to change her last name from Morrison back to Griffin. "You stole 15 years of my life by lying about who I was," Emma had told Amanda during their last meaningful conversation. "I don't know how to forgive that, and I don't know if I want to try." Tyler, now 14, was slightly more forgiving but remained deeply confused about his identity. He split his time between Amanda and Rob, according to the court order, but Amanda could see that he viewed Rob as his real father regardless of biology. Tyler had started therapy to deal with his anger and confusion, and progress was slow. Sophie, now 9, had adapted with the resilience of childhood, but still asked uncomfortable questions that Amanda struggled to answer. "Why did you lie about Daddy Rob?" was a frequent refrain that never got easier to hear. Rob, meanwhile, had thrived in the aftermath of the scandal. His business had expanded significantly, partly due to the publicity surrounding his methodical handling of personal betrayal. Corporate clients appreciated working with a man who had demonstrated both discretion and effectiveness under extreme pressure. He had also begun dating Dr. Helen Rodriguez, a pediatric psychologist who specialized in family trauma. Helen had been recommended by the court to help the children adjust to their new reality. And her professional relationship with Rob had gradually evolved into something personal. Amanda learned about Rob's new relationship through social media posts shared by mutual friends who seemed determined to keep her informed of his happiness. The photos showed Rob and Helen at charity galas, Cubs games, and family dinners with the children, a new family unit that had formed around the ashes of Amanda's old life. The most painful images were those showing the children's obvious comfort with Helen. Emma hugged her in photos, Tyler sought her advice about school projects, and Sophie had started drawing pictures that included Dr. Helen as a permanent family member. Kyle's situation had deteriorated beyond Amanda's worst expectations. The federal conviction had been followed by state charges related to his theft from the Morrison Family Foundation. His mother had died while he was awaiting trial, some said from heartbreak over her son's crimes, leaving Kyle with no family support or financial resources. More damaging, Kyle had been attacked twice by fellow inmates who viewed child exploitation as unforgivable. His requests for protective custody had been denied due to administrative constraints that Amanda suspected were influenced by Rob's law enforcement connections. Kyle's letters to Amanda, smuggled out through other inmates' legal correspondence, painted a picture of a broken man facing the reality of his choices. He begged Amanda to visit, to put money in his commissary account, to provide some connection to the outside world. Amanda had visited Kyle exactly once, 6 months after his sentencing. The experience was horrifying. Kyle had lost significant weight. His arrogance had been replaced by desperate paranoia, and he spent their brief conversation begging her to find ways to appeal his conviction. "This is all your husband's fault," Kyle had insisted. "He set me up, manipulated the evidence, bought off the prosecutors. You have to help me prove it." Amanda realized during that visit that Kyle would never accept responsibility for his actions. Even facing 12 years in prison, he blamed everyone except himself for the consequences of his crimes. She never visited again. The most devastating aspect of Amanda's situation was her complete isolation. Her parents maintained minimal contact, sending birthday cards and Christmas gifts, but declining invitations to visit or spend time together. Her siblings had effectively written her off, viewing her actions as an embarrassment to the family name. Her former friends had moved on, creating new social circles that deliberately excluded her. The few people who still spoke to Amanda did so with a mixture of pity and fascination, treating her like a cautionary tale rather than a human being deserving of compassion. Amanda had tried dating through online apps, but potential partners inevitably discovered her history through internet searches. The combination of adultery, deception, and association with a convicted criminal made her radioactive in the dating market. The psychological toll was immense. Amanda spent hours replaying the decisions that had led to her downfall, trying to understand how she had mistaken Kyle's manipulation for love and Rob's devotion for oppression. Therapy helped somewhat, but progress was slow when every day brought fresh reminders of her losses. The children's academic and social success under Rob's guidance was particularly painful. Emma had been accepted to Northwestern University with Rob's support and encouragement. Tyler was excelling in baseball and had started showing interest in his father's security business. Sophie was thriving in her new school and had made friends who knew nothing about the family's complicated history. Amanda realized that her children were better off without her constant presence. This recognition was both liberating and devastating. She had sacrificed everything for an affair that had ultimately proven worthless, while the family she had abandoned was flourishing in her absence. The legal system continued to favor Rob's position. When Amanda requested modifications to the visitation schedule or custody arrangement, the courts consistently ruled in favor of maintaining stability for the children. Rob's documentation of every interaction, every missed visit, and every instance of the children's expressed preferences created an unassailable record. Amanda's attorney, her third since the divorce, had been blunt about her prospects. "Mrs. Morrison, you have no leverage in this situation. Mr. Griffin holds all the cards legally, financially, and emotionally. My advice is to focus on rebuilding your relationship with your children slowly and accepting that your previous life is never coming back. On the first anniversary of the birthday revelation, Amanda received an unexpected package. Inside was a photo album containing pictures from the children's first year under the new arrangement. The images showed school plays, birthday parties, family vacations, and everyday moments of happiness. A note from Rob was included. "Amanda, I wanted you to see that the children are thriving. They ask about you often, and I encourage them to maintain contact when they're ready. I hope you're finding peace with your new life. Rob." The gesture was simultaneously kind and cruel, showing Amanda everything she had lost while demonstrating Rob's complete victory over their conflict. He was secure enough in his position to offer occasional generosity, while she remained dependent on his goodwill for any meaningful relationship with her children. Amanda understood that this was her life now, permanently diminished, socially isolated, and financially struggling. While watching from a distance, as the family she had destroyed rebuilt itself around her absence. Rob Griffin had proven that some betrayals carry consequences that extend far beyond legal proceedings or financial settlements. He had created a situation where Amanda would spend the rest of her life paying for her choices, while he and the children moved forward into a future that no longer included her in any meaningful way. The perfect betrayal had met the perfect revenge, and Amanda was learning that some victories are so complete they eliminate any possibility of redemption or recovery. Chapter 9. The New Dynasty. 5 years after the birthday revelation, Rob stood in his new home office overlooking Lake Michigan, reviewing quarterly reports for Griffin Security Solutions. The company had grown exponentially, now employing over 200 people and maintaining offices in 6 major cities. His reputation for handling sensitive situations with ruthless efficiency had made him the go-to consultant for high-profile individuals facing complex security threats. The wall behind his desk displayed framed photographs that told the story of his reconstructed life. Emma graduating as valedictorian from Northwestern, Tyler accepting a baseball scholarship to the University of Illinois, Sophie performing in her school's theater production. Interspersed among these were images of family vacations, holiday celebrations, and quiet moments that captured the genuine happiness Rob had built from the ashes of his former marriage. At 47, Rob had aged well. The stress lines from the betrayal years had been replaced by the confident bearing of a man who had faced his worst nightmare and emerged stronger. His relationship with Helen had evolved into a partnership that combined professional respect with genuine affection. They had married 18 months earlier in a ceremony attended by the children, selected friends, and colleagues who had supported Rob through his darkest period. Helen, now 39, had brought her own strength to their relationship. As a pediatric psychologist, she understood the complexities of blended families and had helped the children navigate their conflicted feelings about their unconventional situation. Her presence had provided stability and emotional intelligence that complemented Rob's protective instincts. The children had adapted remarkably well to their new reality. Emma, now 22, worked as a forensic analyst for the FBI's Chicago field office, a career choice clearly influenced by her adoptive father's work. She maintained minimal contact with Amanda, sending obligatory birthday and Christmas cards, but declining invitations for extended visits. Tyler, 18 and about to start college, had legally changed his name to Tyler Griffin and asked Rob to adopt him formally. The process had been complicated by Amanda's initial objections, but Tyler's passionate testimony about Rob being his real father in every way that matters had swayed the court. Tyler planned to study criminal justice and eventually join Griffin Security Solutions. Sophie, now 13, was the most emotionally complex of the three children. She maintained regular contact with Amanda, but clearly viewed Rob and Helen as her primary family unit. Sophie's adjustment had been carefully managed through therapy and consistent support, allowing her to maintain relationships with both sides of her fractured family. Amanda's life had stabilized at a level far below her previous circumstances, but adequate for basic survival. She worked as an office manager for a small nonprofit organization, lived in a modest apartment, and had developed a small circle of friends who knew nothing about her past. Her contact with the children had settled into a predictable pattern. Occasional phone calls, supervised visits during school breaks, and formal events like graduations where her presence was tolerated but not celebrated. Kyle Morrison had served 3 years of his federal sentence when he was found dead in his cell, the victim of what prison officials described as suicide, but other inmates claimed was murder. Kyle's death had briefly reopened media attention on the case, but public interest quickly faded. Amanda attended his funeral alone, joined only by Kyle's elderly aunt who remained unaware of the full scope of his crimes. Kyle's death had eliminated any possibility of future complications regarding the children's paternity. While Amanda remained their legal mother, Kyle's criminal history and violent end had erased any romantic notions about their true father that the children might have entertained. Rob's business success had created opportunities for strategic philanthropy that helped repair the damage caused by the scandal. Griffin Security Solutions established a scholarship fund for children of single mothers, partnered with domestic violence prevention organizations, and provided pro bono security services for at-risk families. The Morrison Family Foundation, decimated by Kyle's theft, had been reconstituted with Rob's financial support and oversight. The foundation now provided scholarships specifically for children from broken homes, turning Kyle's crimes into a source of genuine help for vulnerable families. Rob's relationship with Amanda had evolved into cold but functional civility. They communicated primarily through Helen, who served as an unofficial mediator for issues involving the children. Amanda had learned to accept Rob's complete victory with grudging respect for his strategic brilliance. During their last direct conversation at Emma's college graduation, Amanda had finally acknowledged the scope of her defeat. "You destroyed me completely," she had told Rob during a brief, private moment. "You destroyed yourself," Rob had replied. "I just made sure you understood the consequences." "Do you ever regret how far you went?" Amanda had asked. Rob had considered the question seriously before answering. "I regret that it was necessary, but I don't regret protecting my children from the chaos you and Kyle created." The conversation had ended there, with both participants understanding that their conflict was permanently resolved in Rob's favor. Rob's success had attracted attention from former military colleagues and law enforcement officials who recognized his unique combination of strategic thinking and operational effectiveness. He had been quietly recruited to consult on national security matters, providing his expertise to government agencies facing complex threats. This work remained classified, but Helen understood that Rob's influence extended far beyond corporate security. He had become part of an informal network of specialists who protected American interests from sophisticated adversaries, a natural evolution of his talent for neutralizing threats. The children's success provided Rob with his greatest satisfaction. Emma's work with the FBI had led to several high-profile arrests, establishing her as a rising star in federal law enforcement. Tyler's athletic and academic achievements had earned him opportunities that would have been impossible in his previous environment. Sophie's artistic talents were flourishing under Helen's encouragement and Rob's support. Rob had created more than just a new family. He had built a dynasty. The Griffin name now represented success, integrity, and the kind of principled strength that attracted respect from peers and adversaries alike. His business empire provided financial security for multiple generations, while his children were positioned to continue his legacy in their chosen fields. Amanda's betrayal, intended to destroy Rob's life, had instead catalyzed his transformation into something far more powerful than he had been as a suburban family man. The experience had stripped away his naive trust while preserving his capacity for love and loyalty toward those who deserved it. On quiet evenings, Rob sometimes reflected on the path that had brought him to this point. The birthday revelation had been intended as his destruction, but it had instead revealed capabilities and connections he never knew he possessed. Amanda and Kyle had awakened a sleeping giant, and their complete destruction had been the inevitable result. Rob Griffin had learned that the most effective revenge is not just punishment, it's transformation. He had taken his enemy's attempt to destroy him and used it as fuel for building something greater than what they had tried to tear down. Amanda lived with the daily knowledge that her betrayal had not just cost her everything she valued. It had made her former husband immeasurably stronger, more successful, and happier than he had ever been with her. Kyle Morrison was dead, unmourned and unremembered, except as a cautionary tale about the consequences of underestimating the wrong man. And Rob Griffin stood at the center of a new empire, surrounded by people who loved and respected him, having proven that some men respond to betrayal not with weakness, but with the kind of ruthless strength that rebuilds the world according to their own vision. The perfect betrayal had indeed met the perfect revenge, and the revenge had won so completely that even the memory of the original conflict was fading into irrelevance. Rob had not just survived Amanda's attempt to destroy him. He had used her betrayal as the foundation for creating something infinitely better than what she had tried to take away. In the end, Amanda and Kyle had given Rob the greatest gift possible. They had shown him exactly how strong he could become when everything he thought he could trust was stripped away. And Rob Griffin had proven that a man who builds his life on the assumption that everyone is a potential threat is very difficult to surprise and impossible to defeat. Epilogue. 10 years after the birthday revelation, Amanda received a wedding invitation in her modest apartment. Emma Griffin was marrying a fellow FBI agent, and the ceremony would be held at Rob's lakefront estate. Amanda was invited as a courtesy, with the understanding that her attendance was optional and her role would be minimal. She sat in the back row during the ceremony, watching her eldest daughter marry a man who clearly adored her, in a setting that represented everything Amanda had lost. Rob walked Emma down the aisle, his pride evident as he fulfilled the role that biology said belonged to someone else, but circumstances had awarded to him. Helen stood beside Tyler and Sophie in the front row, the four of them representing the family unit that had risen from the ashes of Amanda's destructive choices. During the reception, Amanda observed the celebration from the periphery, noting how happy and successful her children had become under Rob's guidance. The contrast with her own diminished circumstances was painful but undeniable. As the evening concluded, Rob approached Amanda's table. After 10 years, he looked distinguished and confident, wearing success with the ease of a man who had earned everything he possessed. "Thank you for coming," he said formally. "It meant something to Emma to have you here." Amanda nodded, understanding that this moment represented the final closure of their conflict. Rob had won so completely that he could afford to be gracious to the woman who had once tried to destroy him. "She's beautiful," Amanda said, looking toward Emma as she danced with her new husband. "They all turned out so well." "Yes, they did," Rob agreed. "Despite everything, they turned out perfectly." The emphasis on "despite everything" was Rob's final reminder that Amanda's children had succeeded not because of her influence, but in spite of her betrayal. It was a gentle but unmistakable assertion of his complete victory. Amanda left the reception early, driving back to her small apartment with the knowledge that she had witnessed the final chapter of a story that had ended exactly as it should have. Rob Griffin had built something beautiful from the wreckage of her destructive choices, and her children were living proof